The lamps are still burning when I wake, though I don't remember falling asleep. The air in this narrow room tastes of soot and something sweeter, thick, cloying, the kind of sweetness that settles on the tongue like dust. Outside, carriage wheels drag through wet cobblestones, slow and tired, as if the whole city has been up all night with me. My hands tremble when I lift them. They always tremble now. That's the trouble with the tincture. Laudanum steals the pain first, then the hours, then the pieces of you didn't think could be taken. I sit up slowly, because the room tilts if I move too quickly. The bottle on the table glints in the lamplight, a small, innocent thing, amber glass gone warm from my fingers. People outside think opium addicts look monstrous, but the truth is quieter, more ordinary. You fade gently, like wallpaper left too long in the sun. If you're here with me, listening in this dim morning hush, stay close. And before we go further, breathe with me for a moment and tap the like button so more night owls can find their way in. Tell me where you're listening from. It's strangely comforting to know how far these quiet stories travel, because Victorian London was not kind to people who slipped beneath its surface. Down here, in the boarding houses and back alleys, laudanum wasn't a luxury, it was a lifeline, a lullaby, a trap. Every street has a window where someone hasn't stirred. Every chemist has a drawer they pretend not to notice, emptying too quickly. And as I stand, feeling the floor sway under my feet, I know this day will unravel, like all the others, slow, trembling, and hungry for the next dose. Subscribe and stay with me through the fogged windows, the empty bottles, and the quiet ruin of a life slipping away one drop at a time. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? The shadows of Victorian London linger longer than the laudanum ever did. You come to slowly, not because you choose to, but because the room decides it for you. The air is heavy, warmer than your skin, carrying the faint sweetness of opium that clings to the wallpaper like perfume gone stale. Before your eyes open, you feel the shift. Something in the silence has weight tonight, a kind of watchfulness settling over the boards beneath the bed. You breathe in, shallow and cautious, as if even the dust motes hovering in the shaft of lamplight might shatter. Somewhere outside, a cart rolls past on uneven cobblestones, the wheels echoing through the narrow street, as though from inside your own chest. When you finally blink awake, the ceiling tilts slightly, as though it has been waiting for you, leaning closer in judgment. The lamp on the table burns low, the flame sagging in its glass like a tired eye. You don't remember lighting it. You don't remember much of anything, only fragments that feel borrowed. The scrape of a chair, the distant hum of voices, the sharp scent of rain-soaked wool. Your body feels foreign, heavy in the wrong places, and too light in the others. Your fingers tremble before you even lift them, and that's when you notice the bottle on the table, half its contents gone, though you swear it was fuller yesterday. Or was that the day before? Time has been slipping from you in long, blurred threads. When you shift, the bed springs groan, a long, low sigh that seems almost alive, as if the room itself is tired of carrying your weight. You push yourself upright, slow enough to keep the world from tipping. The floorboards creak in soft complaint as a draft slips through the window's cracked frame, brushing your ankles with a cold whisper. London's morning fog presses against the glass, milky and dense, giving the illusion that the world outside has been erased. The wallpaper's floral pattern is peeling in tiny curls, revealing a darker, older layer beneath faded shapes you don't recognize, as though someone else once lived here and left their ghosts behind. The air feels thicker near the walls, warmer near the lamp, colder near the window, all of it shifting around you like a restless tide. You run your hand over the blanket, its worn fibers catching on your fingers. Everything feels slightly wrong, slightly off-kilter, like your senses have been rewound and stitched back together imperfectly. For a moment, you sit there, listening to the distant clatter of hooves, to the soft drip of water in the alley beyond the brick, to your own breath stuttering in your chest. And beneath it all, a faint ringing, a high-pitched whine that grows louder whenever you try to focus. It's become a constant companion, this thin, ghostly tone that seems to hum from inside your skull. You reach for the bottle without meaning to, fingers closing around its neck as naturally as breath. The glass is warm, almost comforting, as if it has been waiting in your hand instead of on the table. The room watches. You feel it. Every corner seems to lean inward, shadows stretching with a kind of slow curiosity, as though the walls themselves know what you're about to do. The flame flickers once, twice, and the room breathes with it. You feel the tremor in your hand worsen, rattling the bottle just enough to make the liquid inside shimmer. You haven't even uncorked it yet, but the scent seems stronger, sweeter, winding its way up your throat, coaxing your exhaustion forward. And somewhere between the quiet panic and the dull ache in your ribs, you understand something you don't want to admit. The room didn't wake you. It roused itself first, shaking itself from stillness, because it knows you won't, because it's been watching you fade, night after night, waiting for the moment when you won't stir at all. You close your eyes, just for a second, long enough to feel the darkness settle against your lashes. And when you open them, the room tilts again, slow, deliberate, patient, reminding you that this is only the beginning of the day, and there are so many hours left for things to unravel. The bell above the chemist's door gives a thin, metallic tremor as you push it open, too soft to be welcoming, too sharp to ignore. The sound settles into the narrow shop like dust falling onto polished wood. Inside, the air is cooler than the street outside, carrying the faint scent of camphor, lavender soap, and something darker tucked between the shelves. Glass bottles glimmer in rows like small watchful eyes, amber and cobalt and clear as river ice. Each one holds a secret, but only one holds yours. You close the door gently, as though afraid the noise might crack the calm that hangs over the place like a veil. The chemist stands behind his counter, head bent over a ledger, his spectacles slipping down the bridge of his nose. His shoulders rise when he hears you just slightly, then relax again when he recognizes the uneven rhythm of your footsteps. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't frown either. Instead, he lifts his gaze slowly, the way a man might look at a wounded animal, cautious but resigned. His eyes are strangely soft, a pale blue tinged with something unreadable, as if he already knows what you're about to ask before you speak it. He always knows. You approach the counter with careful steps, controlling the tremor in your hands by curling your fingers inward. There are days when the trembling is so slight you can pretend it isn't there. And then there are mornings like this when the bones in your hand feel hollow and the muscles flutter as though something beneath your skin is trying to escape. The chemist watches without comment, his gaze lingering on your fingers before drifting upward to your face. He sees the exhaustion in your eyes. He sees the thinning cheeks, the slight discoloration at the corners of your lips, the faint sheen of sweat at your temples. He has been watching your decline in increments, one bottle at a time. "Rough morning?" he asks finally, his voice low and warm, stripped of judgment. The kind of voice meant for dim rooms and sick beds. You attempt a nod, though even that small movement makes the room quiver at the edges. He doesn't press you for details. He never does. Instead, he reaches beneath the counter, disappearing into the shadows for a moment. You hear the faint clink of glass, the rustling of paper, the muted scrape of a drawer. When he straightens again, he isn't holding the bottle you expected. Instead, he hesitates, fingertips resting on the neck of a smaller vial, one with a paler tint, one you've never taken home before. His eyes meet yours. You've been going through more of it than usual. The words fall between you like a flat stone dropping into still water, no ripple, no echo, just weight. You swallow, feeling the dryness in your throat crackle like old parchment. You want to lie. You want to tell him the sleepless nights have been worse, the pain sharper, the days longer. You want to say anything except the truth, which is that you don't remember how much you've been taking, only that the bottle empties faster than the hours in your day. "I'm managing," you whisper, though your voice betrays you, thin and unsteady. The chemist studies you for a long moment, not cruelly, not suspiciously, just deeply. There's worry in his gaze, but also inevitability, like a man watching a candle burn itself down to the wick. Finally, he places the familiar bottle on the counter with a soft tap, sliding it toward you with 2 fingers. But he doesn't let go immediately. His hand rests atop the glass, holding it in place gently but firmly. "This is the last one for the week," you understand. You do. The tremor in your hand worsens as you reach for the bottle, a tremor that betrays how badly you need it. The chemist's eyes linger on the movement, the way your fingers strain and curl. And then, slowly, reluctantly, he releases the bottle into your grasp. You slip it into your coat pocket, the weight of it settling against your ribs like a heartbeat. As you turn to leave, the chemist speaks again, softer than before, as if he's afraid of being overheard. "You should try to eat something today," he murmurs. "It helps. A little." You nod without looking back. Because the truth is simple. Food won't help. Sleep won't help. Nothing will not now. Only the bottle. Only the quiet eyes of the man who sells it to you, knowing one day he will sell you your last. The first swallow burns only a little, just enough to remind you that your body still notices things, even if your mind no longer does. The bitterness slips across your tongue, sharp at the edges, before dissolving into the familiar, syrupy warmth that trails down your throat. You sit on the edge of the bed, waiting for the change, watching the lamplight tremble against the bottle's glass. It should start by now, the soft loosening in your chest, the easing of the tightness behind your ribs, the gentle quieting of the thoughts that won't stop pacing through your skull. But today, the calm comes slower, much slower, as if the opium itself is reluctant to soothe you. You draw in a shallow breath and lean back against the wall, feeling the cool plaster through your thin shirt. The room wavers, not quite settling into the soft focus you've come to depend on. Instead, the edges blur and sharpen, blur and sharpen, like the city outside is flickering behind a veil. You close your eyes, willing the tincture to work its way into your blood, to hush the tremors in your hands and the ache in your bones. But your pulse continues its frantic tapping beneath your skin, and the muscles in your forearms twitch with restless energy. The dose isn't enough. You can feel that already. Whatever comfort used to come on the first drop now needs 2, sometimes 3. You glance at the bottle again, its amber glass warm from your fingers. You know better than to take more so soon, but knowing better has done nothing to save you these past months. You try to count the hours since your last dose, but the days feel braided together, each indistinguishable from the next. Morning dissolves into evening without warning. Sleep arrives only when your body collapses under its own weight. Time used to be something you kept track of. Now it feels like a loose thread dangling from the edge of your life, pulled by invisible hands. You push yourself up, the floor tilting beneath your bare feet. The boards creak unevenly as you pace, one slow step after another, trying to shake off the crawling restlessness inside your limbs. The air in the room seems heavier now, thick with heat and the ghost of opium's sweetness. A bead of sweat slips down your spine, despite the cold outside. Withdrawal and relief battle inside you in a quiet war, one you've grown too familiar with. You run a hand through your hair, tugging lightly at the roots, just to feel something solid, something certain. When you open the window, a crack, the fog rolls in like a living thing, damp, grey, smelling faintly of coal smoke and river mist. London hums beneath it, muffled and strange. Street vendors shout somewhere in the distance, their voices stretched thin by the haze. A carriage rattles past, wheels hitting a rut that sends a shiver through the frame of the house. You watch the world move on without you, as it always does. You used to be part of it, Now you feel like a ghost observing the living. Your hands tremble again, more violently this time, enough that you grip the sill to steady yourself. The dose should have steadied them by now. Instead, your body rebels with small jolts of panic, each one pulsing like a warning. You shut the window and lean your forehead against the cold glass, trying to focus on your breath. In, out, slow, controlled. But control left you weeks ago, maybe months. You're only pretending now, mimicking a habit you can no longer sustain. Eventually, you return to the bed, sinking into the thin mattress. The bottle rests on the table, gleaming like a promise and a threat. You pick it up again, weighing it in your palm. The chemist's voice echoes faintly in your mind, his quiet warning, his eyes searching yours for something you no longer have the strength to hide. You lift the bottle, hesitating for only a moment. Then you take another swallow. Not because you want to, but because the first one didn't quite help enough, and you are terrified of what might happen if you let the feeling inside you grow any louder. The fog hangs low this morning, coiling around your ankles as you step outside like something alive and curious. London's breath moves slow and damp across the narrow street, carrying the scent of coal smoke, horse sweat, and rainwater that never quite dries. You pull your coat tighter around you. Though it doesn't help much, the cold slips in anyway, finding the hollow spaces between your ribs. The bottle in your pocket knocks softly against your side as you walk, a small reminder with each step that you are never truly alone anymore. Not since the tincture wove itself into every hour of your day. Your boots scrape against the cobblestones, a steady rhythm at first. But somewhere between one breath and the next, that rhythm stutters. You blink, adjusting your stride, trying to match your own footsteps again. The street tilts just slightly, as if the stones themselves have shifted overnight. You reach out, fingers brushing the brick wall beside you for balance. The rough texture grounds you for only a moment before the world wavers again, buildings bowing inward, windows blurring into pale smears of light. You close your eyes tightly, telling yourself it's only your vision, only the dose settling in unevenly. When you open them, the street is different. Not empty. London is never empty, but quieter somehow, as though the city's noise has retreated into another layer of fog. No footsteps behind you, no clatter of carriage wheels ahead. Just silence, thick and heavy, as if the world is holding its breath. You look around slowly, searching for a familiar signpost, a stall, a doorway, anything to remind you where you are. But nothing answers. Every storefront looks the same in this muted haze, every window shutter closed, every lamp unlit. You could swear you've been here before, yet nothing feels recognizable enough to grasp. You take another step, and the ground tilts again. A strange sensation rises through you, part dizziness, part memory, part fear. The air tastes metallic now, cold and bright against your tongue. You try to recall the last few minutes, but your thoughts unravel like threads slipping off a spool. Did you pass the bakery? Did you cross the square? Did you speak to anyone? Even your own footsteps seem unfamiliar, fading before they reach your ears. The fog drifts around you, swirling lazily, thinning just enough to reveal the shape of a man standing at the far end of the street. Or perhaps it's only a shadow, tall, still, unmoving. You blink, and the figure blurs at the edges, as though the mist is trying to reclaim it. You blink again, and it's gone. Your heart flutters painfully, rising into your throat. You swallow hard, though your mouth is dry, and force your feet to keep moving. You don't know how long you walk. Minutes, perhaps, or hours. Time behaves strangely in this fog, stretching thin, folding in on itself. You pass the same shuttered window twice, or maybe it's two different windows pretending to be the same. A cat watches you from a doorstep, its eyes glowing faintly, unblinking. When you look away and back again, the cat is gone, leaving only a faint ripple in the mist where it once sat. You check your pocket for the bottle, reassuring yourself with the cool shape of the glass. But even that comfort feels fleeting. Your sense of the world slips in and out of place, and you feel yourself slipping with it. Finally, a sound breaks through the fog, a single bell ringing somewhere far away. Its tone is faint, wavering, as if struggling to find its way to you, but it's enough. Enough to remind you of direction, of movement, of something beyond the haze. You follow the bell's echo, your steps slow and uncertain, until the fog thins just slightly, revealing the outline of a street corner you recognize. A wave of relief washes through you, but it's brief, because as the bell fades, you realize what you've lost in its place, the memory of how you got here, of where you began, of how long you wandered through the fog. The street feels solid again beneath your feet, but something inside you remains unsteady, trembling quietly like a candle burned too low. Time slipped from you today, and you fear it won't be the last time. The tremor begins before you even notice it, small at first. A faint quiver that flutters beneath the skin like a trapped moth. You're sitting at the small wooden table by the window, trying to spoon a bit of broth from a chipped bowl, but the liquid ripples as though disturbed by a passing carriage. Only there is no carriage. No vibration in the floor. No movement outside except the slow drift of London fog hugging the rooftops. The shaking comes from you alone, rising from the center of your palm and spreading outward in stubborn pulses. You grip the spoon tighter, hoping pressure will steady your fingers, but it only makes the tremor sharper. A bead of broth jumps over the rim, splattering onto the table. You stare at the stain for a moment too long, feeling oddly detached from the small mess. Then you try again, lifting the spoon toward your mouth. The hand wavers halfway, twisting, turning, as though guided by some hidden current. By the time it reaches your lips, half the broth has spilled onto your cuff. You let the spoon clatter into the bowl, the sound too loud in the cramped room, echoing against the peeling wallpaper like a reprimand. You rub your hands together, trying to warm them, trying to still them, but the trembling persists. It feels like a tiny engine inside your wrists, rattling your bones, making every gesture uncertain. You press your thumb into the center of your palm until it hurts. The pressure dulls the shake for one breath too, if you're lucky, but it returns with the next exhale, stronger than before. You remember days when your hands were steady, capable, confident. You remember sewing a loose button, pouring tea without spilling a drop, writing letters in neat cursive lines. Those days feel impossibly distant now. On the table beside the bowl lies a half-finished letter. The ink has dried in uneven splotches where your pen faltered, each word interrupted by the tremor. The salutation is crooked, the lines drifting downhill as your hand struggled to obey you. You read the unfinished sentence, "I fear the nights are growing longer," and the rest trails off into a jagged line where the pen slipped, dragging across the page. You don't even remember writing it. The letter could have been penned this morning or 3 nights ago. Your sense of time has frayed into thin, unreliable strands. You pick up the pen again, if only to prove to yourself that you still can. The metal feels cold between your fingers. You adjust your grip, steadying your elbow on the table for support. But the moment the pen touches the paper, the tremor passes through your wrist like a cracking whip. The line you draw is crooked, trembling, more a heartbeat than a word. You drop the pen with a quiet gasp of frustration, your breath hitching in your chest. You press your trembling hands flat against the tabletop, grounding yourself in the wood's solid weight. Then your eyes drift to the bottle. It sits on the nightstand across the room, its amber glow catching the grey morning light. Even from this distance, the glass looks warm, inviting, soothing. The thought of the tincture curls into your mind with familiar sweetness, promising calm, promising relief, promising hands that obey you again. You swallow hard, feeling the want rise through your throat like a tide. But you know you've already taken too much today. You know the chemist's warning rings true. You know what more of it will do to your body. Still, Your hands shake, and the bottle waits. The tremor grows worse the longer you stare at it. A part of you wants to resist, to prove you can endure without another dose. But another part, the louder one, the desperate one, whispers that you will spill anything you touch today unless you calm the trembling. Your fingers twitch in agreement, curling and uncurling like restless insects. You stand, legs unsteady, and take one slow step toward the nightstand. Then another. The room tilts as you reach for the bottle, your hand trembling so fiercely the glass clinks softly against your knuckles. You close your fingers around it, gripping it as though it might flee. The tremor eases, not from the opium, not yet, but from the anticipation of it, the promise of stillness. Your hands wouldn't stay still, but the bottle knows how to quiet them. Night arrives slowly, sliding over the rooftops like a dark shawl drawn across London's shoulders. By the time it settles fully outside your window, the fog has thickened into a heavy, damp curtain that blurs the outlines of every chimney and lamppost. You light your own lamp with a trembling hand, watching the small flame quiver at the end of the match. When it finally catches, the wick glows weakly, casting a thin circle of light across the room, just enough to push back the darkness, but not enough to feel safe. You sink into the chair beside the bed, listening to the quiet hum of the evening. Somewhere far off, carriage wheels grind across wet stone. A dog barks once, then falls silent. The house breathes around you, the old wooden beams settling with soft groans as if adjusting to the weight of the night. You wrap your arms around yourself, trying to keep the cold from seeping into your bones. The bottle sits on the table, half hidden behind the lamplight, but its presence fills the room as surely as the fog outside. You tell yourself you won't touch it again tonight. You've already taken enough, more than enough. Yet, the familiar ache in your limbs begins to stir the low, throbbing restlessness that spreads like heat beneath your skin. You try to ignore it, focusing instead on the lamp's glow, on the way the flame leans slightly to one side, dancing with every small draught. The shadows on the walls sway with it, long and thin like wavering fingers reaching toward you. Then the flame flickers. Once. A brief dimming, so quick you think perhaps you imagined it. You lean forward, watching the wick closely. The room holds its breath. Your own breath catches with it, and then it flickers again. Longer this time, deeper, as though someone had passed directly in front of the lamp. You freeze. Your eyes dart toward the window, but the curtains are drawn tight. No breeze touches your cheek. No draft rustles the fabric. The air is still, almost unnaturally so, heavy with the scent of stale opium and cold fog. A chill crawls up your spine, settling at the base of your neck. You whisper a small curse and stand abruptly, the chair legs scraping softly against the floorboards. The lamp steadies again, its flame returning to its usual dim glow. But something in the room has changed. It's subtle at first, a feeling, a prickle under the skin. You glance around the small space, scanning the corners, the shadows near the wardrobe, the dark seams between the floorboards. Everything looks as it did before, and yet everything feels wrong, as if the walls have shifted a fraction of an inch, leaning inward, as if the shadows have deepened, taking on a thicker, more deliberate shape. Your heartbeat quickens. You tell yourself it's the tincture, the lingering fog in your mind playing tricks on you. You try to shake off the unease, rubbing your palms against your sleeves, but the sensation only grows stronger, settling heavy in your chest. The lamp flickers once more. This time, the flame bends sideways, stretching as if pulled by invisible fingers. You gasp, stumbling backward. The room tilts, your vision narrowing to the small, quivering flame struggling against whatever unseen force tugs at it. For a moment, you swear you see something, a silhouette, a brief curl of darkness moving behind the light like a shadow without a source. Your knees weaken. You grip the edge of the table to steady yourself, and your hand brushes the bottle. The glass is cool, solid beneath your fingertips, a grounding presence, a familiar one. You seize it without thinking, clutching it to your chest as though it could protect you from the strange, creeping dread filling the room. The lamp steadies again. The flame rises only a little, as if exhausted by its struggle. You stand there, breathing hard, staring at it. The room has gone silent, too silent. Even the distant sounds of the city seem to have faded into nothing. You are alone in a stillness so complete it feels unnatural, like the world is listening for something. Minutes pass long, trembling minutes, before you finally lower the bottle. Your hands shake so violently you nearly drop it. You place it back on the table with exaggerated care, as if afraid to disturb the fragile calm that has settled over the room. You sit again, pulling your knees to your chest, your eyes never leaving the lamp. You tell yourself it was nothing, a trick of the light. A draft you didn't feel, the tincture pulling at the edges of your perception. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the opium haze, beneath the exhaustion, you know that something else stirred in your room tonight, something that watched you in the flicker of the flame. And as the lamp's dim glow sways gently in the still air, you realize something far more unsettling. You are no longer certain it was the room that shifted. It might have been you. The morning begins with a knock, soft, hesitant, barely louder than the creak of the settling floorboards. You're still seated in the chair from the night before, having drifted into a thin, restless half-sleep that clings to you like cobwebs. Your neck aches from the angle you held it in, and your fingers twitch with the familiar, creeping tremor. The knock comes again, gentle but insistent. You rub your eyes, forcing yourself to stand as the room sways beneath your feet. It's the landlady. It's always the landlady when the knock sounds before breakfast. You open the door just wide enough to see her face lined and tired, spectacles hanging from a thin chain, her lips pursed in a permanent expression of weary suspicion. She tilts her head slightly, peering past you into the dim room. You know what she sees: the unmade bed, the cold lamp still burning from the night before, the half-empty bottle sitting boldly on the table as if it belongs there. You shift your body to block her view, but you can tell by the narrowing of her eyes that you're too late. "Rent was due yesterday," she says, her voice low enough not to disturb the other tenants. She always speaks softly in the mornings, as though the walls might crumble under anything louder. Your throat tightens. The truth rises immediately: you don't have it. You spent what little you had at the chemist, but the truth is sharp, dangerous. It leads to questions, to pity at best, to eviction at worst. And so, before you can stop yourself, before you even consider the words, the lie slips out, quiet, trembling, but convincing enough. "I sent it already," you whisper, forced calm coating your voice. "Last night. Must have been delivered late." The lie floats between you both, thin as smoke. The landlady blinks once, twice. Her gaze softens, but not entirely. She's heard excuses before, so many that yours doesn't sound new to her. Yet something in your voice must strike a chord, because she nods slowly, adjusting her spectacles. "Well, I'll check the box again this afternoon," she says. "These couriers, they're never punctual." You nod, heart pounding too hard. She hesitates for a moment, eyes drifting again toward the shadowy room behind you. Another question blooms in her expression. "Are you sleeping? Are you well? Are you wasting away in there?" But she doesn't ask it. Instead, she clears her throat and steps back. "Make sure the window stays shut. Fog's heavy this morning." You murmur a thank you and close the door gently, leaning your forehead against the wood as your breath unravels in a shaky exhale. The lie clings to your tongue like the aftertaste of the tincture, bitter and familiar. You didn't mean to say it, but once it was spoken, it felt strangely easy, much easier than the truth. The truth would reveal too much. The truth would show how deeply the opium has wound itself into your days, how your money slips through your fingers as quickly as your time. You walk back into the room, each step softer than the last. The lamplight flickers, or perhaps it's your vision again. You pick up the bottle, turning it slowly in your hand. The glass catches the dim light, casting amber streaks across your fingers. Your pulse settles just from touching it, even before the cork loosens. You tell yourself that this will be the last dose of the morning. You tell yourself you'll fix everything by afternoon. You tell yourself that lies spoken quietly don't count as real lies. But when you lift the bottle to your lips and take a long, unsteady swallow, you feel the echo of the lie settling deeper, not just on your tongue, but in your bones. It was the first lie you told softly. And now that it's been spoken, you fear it won't be the last. You don't notice it at first. Not when you wake from a shallow doze in the chair. Not when you stand, stretching your aching back as the room sways like a boat in slow water. Not even when you cross the small space to close the curtains against the bright, pitiless morning light. It's only later, after the tincture settles into that uneasy place between relief and disorientation, that you realize something is wrong. The door is ajar, just slightly, just enough for a thin sliver of hallway light to slip across the wooden floor like a blade of gold. You stare at it, trying to recall whether you opened it, whether you heard it open, but your memory is a series of loose threads this morning, each one drifting away the moment you try to catch it. You take a hesitant step toward the door, heartbeat rising in your throat. The hallway beyond is quiet. Too quiet for a house filled with tenants who rise early to chase wages across the city. Usually, you'd hear footsteps by now. Someone humming, someone arguing softly, someone coughing behind thin walls. This stillness feels unnatural, like the building itself is holding its breath. You press your palm against the door, pushing it until it swings shut with a muted click. Only the click is wrong somehow. Soft, muffled, like something dampened the sound. You check the lock, your fingers brushing the cool metal. Unlocked. You're certain you locked it before sleeping. You always do. It's habit, it's necessity. In this part of London, locked doors are as essential as warm coats and steady wages. Without them, your room is nothing more than an invitation. You turn the key until it clicks properly this time. The sound echoes through the small space, louder than you expect. Almost scolding. You step back, eyes scanning the room, every corner, every shadow, every small, forgotten detail. The chair is where you left it. The blankets are rumpled on the bed. The bottle sits on the table, half hidden behind the lamp. Everything looks the same. And yet, the air feels disturbed. You stand in the center of the room, listening. There's a faint scent you can't quite place, something earthy, cold, a trace of damp wool perhaps, as though someone passed through recently. You check the window, still latched. You check the wardrobe, empty, dim, nothing but your worn coat hanging limply. You crouch to look under the bed, though you know no one could possibly fit there. Still, your breath catches as your eyes adjust to the darkness beneath the frame. Dust, floorboards, nothing else. But the silence is louder now, pressing, expectant. You straighten, steadying yourself against the edge of the bed as the room tilts. And that's when the fear begins, not sudden and sharp, but slow and creeping, a quiet dread whispering beneath your skin. You try to convince yourself that you simply forgot. You were tired. You were shaking. The dose had you unsettled. But deep down, beneath the haze, beneath the excuses, you know it wasn't just forgetfulness. Something woke you before dawn. Something made a sound you didn't recognize but dismissed in your half-sleep. Something brushed the floorboards with a weight too soft to name. You look toward the door again, now firmly locked, and your stomach tightens as a thought settles uninvited into your mind. If someone came in, they didn't take anything. They were looking for you. The realization chills you so completely your hands begin to shake again. You grip your elbows, drawing your arms close, as if that small gesture could shield you. It doesn't. Nothing does anymore. You step back toward the chair, slowly lowering yourself, eyes never leaving the door. It stays closed, silent, still. But the fear stays with you heavy and alive, whispering that the door was open for a reason, and that next time, you may not wake soon enough to notice. The afternoon light drifts through your curtains in thin, muted bands, the kind of pale illumination that makes everything in the room look washed out and distant. You sit at the edge of the bed, pressing both palms against your knees, trying to steady the faint quiver running through your limbs. The world feels grainy today, edges too sharp in some places, blurred entirely in others. You breathe slowly, deliberately, hoping the air will cool the heat creeping beneath your skin. It does nothing. You reach for the bottle on the table, its amber glow catching the dim light. The glass feels cool against your fingers as you lift it, turning it gently so the liquid inside rolls along the curved bottom. The sound is faint, a soft whisper of opium syrup caressing glass, but the whisper is too soft, too shallow. There isn't enough weight in your hand. The bottle feels lighter than it should, much lighter. A prickle of unease crawls down your spine. You place the bottle on your lap, uncorking it slowly. A faint sweetness wafts upward, scenting the air with that familiar, dangerous perfume. You peer inside, tilting the bottle to catch what little light the room offers. The liquid swirls weakly, clinging to the bottom like the last swirl of coffee grounds. You blink once, twice. The level hasn't dropped this low. You're certain of it. You remember taking a dose in the morning, another when the tremors worsened, another after the landlady's knock. But not this much. Not nearly this much. Unless you did, your chest tightens as you try to recall the hours since dawn. They slip through your mind like wet stones, hard to grasp, impossible to hold. You see fragments, your hand shaking over the broth, the lamp flickering twice, the open door, the lie to the landlady, but the bottle. You don't remember draining it this far. You lift it again, gently swirling the contents. The syrup clings thinly to the glass. Panic stirs beneath your ribs, rising like a tide. You tell yourself you must have misjudged. You tell yourself you poured more than you meant to. You tell yourself that the haze between doses always distorts your memory. But a different thought grips you, colder and sharper than the rest. What if someone else took it? You glance toward the door, the memory of it standing ajar still heavy in your mind. Someone could have entered. Someone could have stepped quietly across your floor, their shadow stretching long in the dim lamplight. Someone could have lifted the bottle, tilted it, tasted the sweetness of your dependence. Someone could have lingered over you as you slept, listening to your uneven breath. Your skin prickles with a slow, rising dread. You stand abruptly, the bottle clutched tightly in your hand. The room tilts for a moment, but you steady yourself, your pulse throbbing in your temples. You check the wardrobe again. Empty. You check the window latch again. Secured. You check beneath the bed once more, even though you know nothing waits for you there. Still, your breath catches as you lower your head to look. Dust. Shadows. Silence. You return to the table, your legs unsteady. The bottle shakes in your grip, the tiny amount left inside trembling with each movement. You set it down carefully, afraid that even the slightest misstep might spill the last of it. You can't afford to lose a single drop now, not until the chemist is willing to sell you more. Not until you find a way to soothe the tremors clawing at your muscles. You lower yourself into the chair, your breath uneven. The room feels smaller somehow, as though the walls are closing in with each quiet second. You rest your fingertips on the bottle, tracing the curve of the glass, trying to decide whether to take what's left or save it for the inevitable night. Your thoughts drift to the door again, to the stillness in the hallway, to the scent of damp wool, to the fact that nothing in the room was missing except the opium. The bottle sits there, nearly empty. And as the last threads of daylight fade from your window, you realize something far more terrifying than the vanishing dose. You are not certain which frightens you more, that someone else took what you depend on, or that you did it yourself and simply can't remember. The street is darker than it should be for this hour. That's the first thing you notice as you lift your head and find yourself already halfway down the narrow lane behind the butcher's shop, your breath faintly clouding the air in uneven bursts. The fog sits heavy tonight, thick enough to swallow the lamps whole and leave only dim halos floating like tired ghosts. You blink hard, rubbing your temples, trying to recall how you got here, what direction you came from, what words you may have spoken, what faces passed you by. But your memory is an empty corridor, echoing faintly but revealing nothing. Your hands are cold, colder than the air should allow. You glance down to find your gloves missing, though you distinctly remember pulling them on before leaving your room. You flex your fingers, feeling the tremor ripple through each joint as though your bones are vibrating beneath your skin. The bottle in your pocket bumps softly against your thigh, with each step a steady, rhythmic tap that anchors you more than the ground beneath your feet. You touch it, reassuring yourself that it's still there, that something familiar remains, even if everything else has slipped away. You stop beneath a flickering lamppost, the light buzzing weakly overhead. It casts a thin glow across the cobblestones, revealing the muddied edge of your trouser leg, the damp hem brushing your ankle. A sensation crawls across the back of your mind, something you should remember, a place you should be, a conversation that might have happened. The city murmurs around you, a distant laugh, the clatter of a closing shop shutter, a carriage rolling slowly past at the end of the street. Yet none of it feels connected to you. You are moving through London like a shadow, untethered and unnoticed. A sharp ache pulses behind your eyes, forcing you to pinch the bridge of your nose. You try to assemble the pieces of your day, but each thought dissolves the moment you touch it. You recall stepping out for air, or perhaps it was to find food, or to clear your head, or to escape the claustrophobic press of your room. You remember the cold bite of the wind, the distant scent of roasted chestnuts drifting through the market square. You think maybe you heard someone call your name, but the next moment is blank, a sudden void, as though an entire stretch of the city reached up and swallowed your awareness whole. You press forward, taking steps you hope are in the right direction. The fog grows thicker, curling around your legs like low, clinging smoke. You reach out to steady yourself on a brick wall, your fingertips brushing wet moss. The wall feels foreign beneath your hand, as if you haven't walked this way in years. Yet underneath the disorientation, another feeling takes root: unease. Not panic, not fear exactly, but a quiet, unsettling certainty that you weren't alone earlier, that someone walked beside you, close enough to touch, someone whose face refuses to form in your mind. Your breath hitches, a shiver slips down your spine. You quicken your pace, boots splashing through shallow puddles. The sound echoes too loudly, too long, bouncing between the buildings in a way that makes you feel pursued. You tell yourself it's only the city's acoustics playing tricks on you, but the rhythm behind you matches yours too perfectly. Step for step, breath for breath, you don't dare look back. Instead, you clutch the bottle in your pocket, fingers tightening around it until your knuckles ache. And then, in a single disorienting instant, you're standing in front of your door. No memory of turning corners. No memory of climbing the hill. No memory of the street you just left behind. Your key shakes in your hand as you fit it into the lock. The hallway is dim and silent, the air heavy with the scent of boiled cabbage and old wood. When you close the door behind you, a wave of relief washes over your body, but it's thin, flimsy, fragile. You lean your back against the door, letting the stillness swallow you whole. Your heart is still racing, your breath unsteady, your mind blank. You uncork the bottle with trembling fingers, because you have no explanation for the missing hours. No memory of how you returned. No proof you were alone. And the only thing more terrifying than forgetting the walk home is wondering who remembered it for you. The bell above the chemist's door trembles as you step inside, letting out a thin metallic note that echoes through the narrow shop like a sound heard underwater. You pause on the threshold, letting the warmth settle over your chilled skin. The fog clings to your coat as you brush it off, leaving faint droplets across the wooden floor. Shelves rise on either side, lined with jars of herbs and glass bottles containing liquids of every shade: amber, cobalt, murky green, each one catching the lamplight in small flickers. You make your way toward the counter with slow steps, conscious of the tremor in your hands. Your fingers curl into the fabric of your pocket, hiding the small, empty bottle that clinks softly with each movement. Its hollowness feels like an accusation. You push the thought aside. You can't afford to dwell on it. Not today. Not when the memory of the missing hours still gnaws at you like a dull ache behind your ribs. The chemist looks up as you approach. His pale eyes flicker with something unreadable: concern, perhaps, or resignation. He closes the ledger in front of him, pressing a hand over the ink as though shielding it from your gaze. "You're back early," he says quietly. You attempt a tight smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes. "Couldn't sleep," you murmur, your voice thin. He studies you, gaze lingering on the twitch in your fingers, the pallor in your face, the faint sheen of sweat along your hairline. He notices everything he always has, but today his expression is different. Tighter, more wary. "How much have you taken since yesterday?" he asks. The question hangs in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Your mind scrambles for an answer, but your memories blur into a fog of half-formed impressions. You see flashes: the lamp flickering twice, the door left open, your hands trembling as you lifted the bottle to your lips, but nothing clear. You look down, ashamed. "I don't remember," you whisper. The chemist's jaw tightens. He reaches beneath the counter, pulling out a small vial, not the usual size, but smaller, almost delicate. He turns it in his hand, examining it before placing it on the counter between you, though he doesn't release his grip. "You're losing time," he says softly. "That's not just exhaustion. That's not just strain. It's the laudanum." You swallow hard. His words fall into you like stones sinking into deep water. "You need to slow down," he continues. "Your body can't keep this up. People in your condition—" He stops himself, exhaling through his nose. "You're heading toward a place that's difficult to come back from." Your pulse pounds in your ears. The edges of your vision dim slightly. You shake your head, forcing your voice to steady. "I just need enough to get through the day," you say. "That's all." He looks at you for a long, agonizing moment. Then, gradually, reluctantly, he removes his hand from the bottle, letting you take it. But before you can slip it into your pocket, he lays his fingers gently on your sleeve. "This is the last until next week," he says. "Do you understand me? No more until then." A hollow panic rises in your chest. A week. You can't go that long, not with the trembling in your bones, not with the restless ache beneath your skin, not with the shadows in your room bending in ways you don't trust. Still, you nod. The lie comes easier than it did the first time. Too easy. "I understand." The chemist's gaze softens, but there is a sorrow buried in it, quiet and inevitable. "Take care of yourself," he murmurs, "and keep the door locked. Always." You leave the shop with the small bottle tucked against your ribs, its weight familiar and comforting. The fog greets you outside, wrapping itself around your body like a damp shroud. You clutch the vial tightly, pushing the chemist's warning to the back of your mind. A week. You won't make it a week. You both know that. But the bottle is warm in your pocket, and for now, that is all you can hold on to. The scent greets you before the room itself does, a faint sweetness layered over something older, something stale, something that clings to the walls like a memory that refuses to fade. You push the door open slowly, the hinges giving a soft groan, and step inside. The air is heavy tonight, thick with the remnants of doses past, with the echo of nights spent half awake and half vanished. The faint glow from the corridor slips across the floorboards, illuminating dust motes that drift lazily through the stillness. You close the door behind you. The click feels final, as though you've shut out the world entirely. Inside, the room feels suspended in time, caught between breaths, between heartbeats, between versions of you that no longer exist. The curtains hang motionless, trapping the fog outside. The lamp on the table flickers weakly, casting a dim halo of amber light across the peeling wallpaper. That familiar floral pattern, once delicate and charming, now curls at the edges like paper left too close to a flame. The shadows between the petals have grown darker, deeper, almost textured. You inhale, letting the air settle in your lungs. The sweetness is unmistakable, opium's lingering perfume, but there's something else beneath it, something faintly sour. Something like damp cloth or old wood left too long in darkness. You step farther in, letting your eyes adjust. It feels as though the room has shifted slightly since you left, reshaped itself in your absence. The bed looks untouched, though you're certain you sat there this morning. The blanket hangs awkwardly off the side, its folds unfamiliar. Then you notice the bottle. Not the one from earlier, the one you tucked safely into your coat pocket after leaving the chemist, but the older one, the nearly empty one you left on the table last night. It lies on its side now, drained completely, the last trace of syrup dried in a thin, glistening ring along the bottom. You freeze. You didn't leave it like that. You remember setting it upright, carefully, almost reverently. You remember staring at it in the dim lamplight, wondering if you should save the last few drops for the morning. But the bottle is bone dry. Your breath stutters. The tremor in your hand returns, sharp and insistent. You glance toward the door again, half expecting it to be ajar, half expecting a dark figure to be standing in the corner behind you. But the door is shut. The corners are empty. The silence suffocates. You step closer to the table, studying the bottle as though it might explain itself. Your fingers brush the glass. It's cold, too cold, as if it has been exposed to the night air. You pull your hand back quickly, your skin tingling with unease. The room feels colder too, as though some draft has seeped in despite the window being firmly latched. A flicker of movement catches your eye, a shift in the lamplight, a ripple along the wallpaper. You blink, holding your breath, but nothing stirs. The shadows stay still, and yet the room feels inhabited, watched, as though someone stood here moments ago, as though someone breathed in this same thick sweetness, touched the bottle, moved through the air like a whisper. You pace slowly, each step careful, careful, careful. The floorboards creak in patterns you don't recognize. You pass the wardrobe, closed. You touch the window, locked. You hover by the bed, sheets cool, undisturbed. You circle back to the table, your pulse hammering in your ears. The smell is stronger here, dense, sweet, almost cloying. You close your eyes. The room presses in around you, a gentle, suffocating weight. A room that smells of forgetting. A room that has watched you slip through hours and lose yourself in amber glass. A room where time blurs and shadows shift and bottles empty themselves. You open your eyes slowly. For a moment, only a moment, you're certain you see another figure standing beside you in the reflection of the lamp's glass. A blur, a shape, a presence. Then it vanishes with the next flicker of light. Your breath trembles as you sink into the chair, the air around you thick enough to taste. The smell clings to you now, seeping into your clothes, your hair, your thoughts. The room wants you quiet, still, forgotten. And as you sit there, hands shaking softly in your lap, you realize something terrifying. This is no longer just a room you live in. It is a room that is learning how to keep you. You hear him before you see him, his footsteps on the stairwell, measured and familiar, each one tapping through the thin walls like a memory calling your name. You're seated at the small table, hands clasped tightly together to hide the tremor running through them. The air is thick again, dense with the sweetness of opium that seems to seep from the very plaster. You consider ignoring the sound, pretending you're not here, not awake, not listening. But the footsteps slow near your door, and then there's a gentle knock, 2 soft taps, the same way he's always knocked, never louder than necessary. You hesitate before rising. Your legs feel unsteady, the floor subtly tilting beneath your feet. You unlock the door with careful fingers and pull it open just enough to reveal him standing there in the dim hallway light. His name slips through your mind like something half forgotten, an echo of a life lived before the tincture took hold. He looks older than you remember. Or perhaps it's only that you've grown thinner, paler, making everyone else seem more solid by comparison. He offers a small smile, though worry sits behind it like a shadow he can't hide. "I was in the area," he says, though the words sound rehearsed. You know he wasn't. No one comes to this part of the city unless they must. You step aside to let him in, feeling exposed under his gaze as he crosses the threshold. He pauses just inside, eyes drifting over your room, with a quiet sadness he tries and fails to conceal. He sees the unwashed cup beside the bed, the rumpled blanket, the nearly empty vial on the table, the stale air that clings to everything like a curtain. His jaw tightens, only slightly, but enough. "You haven't been well," he says softly. You lower your gaze, suddenly fascinated by the frayed edge of your sleeve. "Just tired," you murmur. "Work has been demanding." He steps closer. "You don't work at the printing house anymore. They let you go weeks ago." The words strike you like a cold wind. Your breath falters. You try to recall the moment when they told you, how they said it, what you did afterward, but all you see is fog. Fog and lamplight. Fog and trembling hands. Fog swallowing entire days you cannot retrieve. You force a weak smile. "I'll find something new." But he's not fooled. He studies you carefully, eyes lingering on the hollow beneath your cheekbones, on your shaking fingers, on the way your body sways ever so slightly though you're standing still. He sighs not with annoyance, not with anger, but with a quiet grief, born from watching someone he once knew slip into someone he no longer recognizes. "Tell me the truth," he says. "How much are you taking?" The question lands heavily. You feel it in your bones. Your mouth dries, your tongue heavy with the weight of too many lies spoken softly. You open your lips, but no words come. Your throat tightens. The room presses inward. You can feel his gaze searching your face, waiting for an answer. You force a shrug. Just enough. He shakes his head slowly. "You're disappearing," he whispers. "Piece by piece." The words sting, not because they're unkind, but because they're true. You can feel it too, the fading, the thinning, the way your days unravel like pulled thread. You want to reach for him, to assure him you're fine, to pull yourself upright and prove you are still whole. But your hands betray you, trembling visibly now. He notices. He takes a slow breath, steadying his voice. "Let me help you, please." You shake your head, too quickly, too desperately. "I don't need help." "Look at yourself," he says gently. You cannot, because if you do, if you meet his eyes, if you hear the tremor in his voice, if you acknowledge the fear wrapping his words, you will have to face the truth that terrifies you more than the withdrawal, more than the shadows in your room, more than the fading hours. You are no longer the person he knew. He reaches out, placing a hand on your arm. His touch is warm, steady, real. For a moment, something bright flickers in the fog, a memory of laughter, of long walks, of simpler days. And then it's gone. You pull your arm away, gently but firmly. "I'm fine," you whisper. The lie hangs between you, fragile and transparent. He steps back, hurt flickering across his expression. After a long silence, he nods once. "If you need me, You know where to find me. You don't answer. He leaves quietly, closing the door behind him with a soft click that echoes through your chest. When the silence settles again, heavier than before, you return to the table. You stare at the bottle. The room smells thickly of forgetting, and you realize with a tremor you cannot steady that someone finally noticed you're disappearing. But noticing is not the same as stopping, and you are already too far along the path to turn back. You find it by accident, though. Deep down, you know there is no such thing as accident anymore. Not in the life you are leading. The evening has settled in with its usual heaviness, the kind that presses against your ribs and makes each breath feel like lifting a weight. You're kneeling beside the bed, reaching for the blanket that slipped to the floor, when your fingers brush something cool in the darkness. Glass, smooth, familiar. Your heart stutters. You freeze, hand still half extended, your breath caught between your teeth. Slowly, carefully, you lower yourself onto your knees, peering into the thin band of shadow beneath the bed. Dust clings to the floorboards, drifting in small pale clumps like the remnants of forgotten winters. And there, just beyond your reach, lies a bottle. Amber, unopened, untouched. A second bottle. You don't remember putting it there. Your pulse quickens, rising into your throat with a quiet panic. Your hand trembles as you reach for it again, this time with deliberate intent. The glass slides into your palm, cool as river stone, the cork sealed cleanly at the top. You sit back on your heels, staring at it with disbelieving eyes. It's impossible. You haven't had enough money for a second vial. The chemist would never have sold you more. And yet, the bottle sits solid and real in your hand, weighty with promise and dread. You turn it over slowly, watching the lamplight pool through the amber glass and paint warm gold across your fingers. There is no mark, no scratch, no smudge, nothing to suggest time has ever touched it. Your breath hitches. You search your memories again, frantically this time. Did you hide it days ago? Weeks? During one of the missing hours? Did you tuck it away in a moment you've already forgotten? Or did someone else hide it for you? That thought comes quietly, slipping between your ribs like a blade. You look toward the door, the lock you always check twice, the bolt you trust even as your mind falters. You imagine a shadow moving across your room, crouching beside your bed, sliding the bottle into place with care. Too much care. As though preparing for the moment you'd be desperate enough to look. Your fingers tighten around the glass. A wave of relief crashes through you, sudden, intoxicating, reckless. The tremors in your hands ease, just slightly, as though the bottle's mere presence soothes your frayed nerves. But beneath the relief lies something colder, dread, because you know this changes everything. If you truly hid it yourself, then you are disappearing faster than you feared. If someone else placed it there, then you are not alone in your downward spiral. You sit on the floor, bottle cradled in your palms like a secret you never meant to keep. The room feels smaller again, thick with the sweetness of opium and something unspoken. You lift the bottle closer to your chest, feeling its chilled surface warm slowly under your touch. The temptation pulses through you, sharp, immediate, undeniable, enough to carry you through the night, enough to silence the tremors, enough to drown the questions you can no longer bear to ask. You close your eyes, exhaling shakily, and then, with a helplessness that feels almost sacred, you pull the cork free. The small pop echoes through the room like a sigh, soft, inevitable. You lift the bottle to your lips, because whether this was your doing or someone else's, the truth no longer matters. Only the relief does. And tonight, the second bottle finds you before the night can swallow you whole. The dose settles into you slowly, like warm ink spreading through cold water. For a brief moment, you feel suspended, held between waking and drifting, between presence and absence. But the relief is thinner now, stretched taut like old cloth. It doesn't sink into your bones the way it once did. Instead, it hovers beneath your skin, softening the edges of the world without ever making them safe. You sit on the bed, legs drawn close, the empty bottle rolling lazily beside your ankle with each quiet breath. The lamp flickers again once, then twice, but you don't move to adjust it. The shadows stretch across the wallpaper in strange, bending shapes, pooling in the corners like ink spilled from a careless hand. You rub your eyes. When you open them, the room looks the same, and yet not the same. The air feels thicker tonight, humid with the weight of something unsaid. You try to steady your breath, but each inhale feels like you're pulling fog into your chest. You press your palms against the mattress, grounding yourself, but the springs groan beneath your touch, vibrating faintly as though reacting to a tremor you can't feel. Your heartbeat ticks loudly in your ears. You wait for it to slow. It doesn't. You shift your gaze toward the far wall. The wallpaper pattern curls at the edges, peeling slightly where the damp has crept through. You've long grown used to its faded motifs, blue flowers, soft petals, but tonight they look warped, almost swollen, as though they're pushing outward from the plaster. You blink, convinced it's a trick of the lamplight. But the flowers pulse, barely, subtly, but undeniably. You push yourself upright, the mattress sighing beneath you, and take a slow step toward the wall. The floorboards creak in a soft protest. You reach out, fingers trembling, and hover your hand just above the surface. The air is cold here, much colder than the rest of the room. You pull your hand back quickly, breath-catching. The walls feel closer tonight, not metaphorically, viscerally, as if they have leaned inward, even just a fraction of an inch, enough for you to feel the shift in your ribs. You turn toward the window, but the curtains are drawn tight, the fabric unmoving. You cross the room quickly, pulling the curtains apart, only to be met by a blank sheet of fog pressed directly against the pane, white and impenetrable. You can't see the street, you can't see the lamps, you can't see anything at all. The fog presses against the glass like a living thing. You pull the curtains closed again. The room feels smaller now, narrower, the edges sharper, the ceiling lower. You step backward until your spine meets the opposite wall with a soft thud. Your breath quickens. The opium should have softened the panic, but it hasn't. If anything, it sharpens, it gives it form and weight. The walls seem to shift again, ever so slightly, as though they're breathing with the rhythm of your heartbeat. Your vision blurs at the edges, then snaps back into focus. You try to speak aloud to tell yourself it's nothing, that this is the tincture twisting your senses, but no sound leaves your mouth. You feel the bottle near your feet, rolling gently across the floor, as though nudged by an unseen hand. You drop to your knees, gripping the bed frame, the wood pressing into your skin. The trembling returns, stronger this time, more insistent. You squeeze your eyes shut, forcing your breath to steady. You count each inhale, each exhale, but the sense of the walls drawing closer doesn't fade. It grows, tightens, encircles. When you open your eyes again, the shadows on the wall no longer resemble petals. They look like fingerprints, long smudges dragged down the plaster by something trying to claw its way through. Your pulse hammers. You press your back harder against the wall behind you, as though you might push it away, force the room to widen again. But it doesn't widen. It watches. It holds. And as the lamp flickers once more, a single thought rises through the haze, cold and clear. Tonight, the room is not merely closing in. It is trying to swallow you whole. You don't remember deciding to leave your room. One moment you were sitting on the edge of the bed, your breath shallow, and the walls pressing in with silent hunger. The next, you found yourself on the staircase, one hand trailing along the banister as though guided by some instinct deeper than thought. The need to escape the suffocating closeness pushed you forward, down each creaking step, past the landlady's closed door, past the threadbare carpet that smelled of dust and rainwater. By the time you reached the street, the night had already swallowed the sky. The fog met you like an embrace, cold, damp, thick enough to blur the world into uncertain shapes. You walked with your collar pulled up, your fingers tucked into your sleeves to hide the persistent tremor. The city felt eerily still. No vendors calling out their final wares, no footsteps echoing alongside yours, only the dull thud of your heart and the occasional soft hiss of gas lamps flickering in the mist. You didn't know where you were going, but you needed air, needed distance, needed space wider than the cramped room that seemed set on devouring you whole. That was when you reached the mouth of the alley. Narrow, unlit, choked with fog so thick it looked like a wall. You've passed it hundreds of times, though rarely at night. By day, it's a dirty passageway between two overgrown tenements, a place where refuse gathers and children sometimes cut through to get home faster. But tonight the alley feels different. Too quiet, too deep. Its darkness breathes in slow pulses, like the lungs of something waiting. Still, you step into it, because the street feels too open, because your skin prickles under the lamplight, because some part of you whispers that the alley is quicker, shorter, a shortcut you desperately need. Your boots glide over cobblestones slick with moisture. A faint drip echoes from somewhere ahead, rhythmic and hollow. The fog thickens with each step until your own body feels distant, as though you are walking through a dream you cannot wake from. The walls on either side loom tall, their bricks blackened with soot and damp. You trail your fingers along one of them, feeling the cold bite into your knuckles. The alley narrows the farther you go, funneling you into its depths. Halfway through, the sounds change. Behind you, footsteps, soft, muffled, matching your pace. You stop. The footsteps stop too. Your throat tightens, your breath catching on a thin thread of fear. You turn your head slightly, but the fog is too dense to see more than a few feet behind you. A darker shape seems to shift within the haze, but when you blink, it dissolves. You tell yourself it's nothing, a stray echo, a trick of the fog. You take another step. The footsteps follow. Your pulse spikes, pounding in your ears. You quicken your pace, though the alley is uneven, each step an uncertain gamble. Your hand grazes the wall again, fingers trembling violently now. You don't dare look back. The fog feels alive, curling at your ankles, tugging at your coat, whispering against your skin. Then, abruptly, the footsteps stop. Silence pools behind you like ink. You slow down, breath hitching, straining to hear anything, any hint of movement, any sign you're not alone. But all you hear is the faint drip ahead. You force your legs to move again, your body tense, every instinct urging you to run, yet knowing that running would scatter what remains of your balance. At last, the alley widens slightly, revealing the street ahead, a distant glow of lamplight breaking through the murk. You push forward, relief blooming like warmth in your chest as you step out of the alley's grip and into the faint safety of the open street. Only then do you turn back. The fog inside the alley roils in slow, unnatural swirls, as though stirred by unseen hands. For a moment, just a moment, you see a figure standing deep within it, tall, still, watching. You blink again. Gone. You stumble backward until the lamplight touches your coat. Your breath shakes, your fingers twitch, and a realization take root, cold and certain. The alley is no shortcut. It is a mouth. And tonight, it nearly swallowed you whole. Morning breaks without warmth, a thin grey light dripping through the curtains like diluted ink. You wake with the familiar heaviness pressing against your bones, your head pounding in dull, uneven throbs. The room is quiet, too quiet, and the scent of yesterday's dose still lingers on your breath, clinging to the back of your throat like something sour. You sit up slowly, feeling the mattress dip beneath your weight, and rub at your eyes until the blur fades. It doesn't fade much. Your pocket feels lighter today, much lighter. You reach inside, fingertips brushing fabric where coins should be, where they used to be, where you wish they were. empty. You knew it before you checked, but confirmation stings anyway. You shift your gaze to the small wooden box on the table, the one where you keep what little money manages to survive the week. You open it. Bare. Not even a stray copper. For a long moment, you sit in silence, letting the truth seep in. You have nothing left. Not for food, not for the landlady, not for anything except the bottle hidden under your coat, and even that is running low. The tremor in your hands begins again, soft at first, like the fluttering of moth wings, then stronger, more insistent. You press your palms against your knees, trying to steady them. But the need gnaws at you. It's not hunger, not truly, not the kind food can soothe. It's an ache that coils beneath your ribs, tightening its grip, whispering for just a taste, just a swallow, just enough to quiet the shaking. You swallow hard. You need money, and there is only one person who will lend it now. You rise from the bed, slipping into your coat and buttoning it with unsteady fingers. The hallway is dim as you step into it, the boards groaning beneath your weight like old bones. The landlady's door stays mercifully shut. You move past it as quietly as you can, avoiding the spots where the floor splinters. Outside, the fog hugs the street in pale ribbons, swirling around your ankles as if guiding you forward or holding you back. Every step toward the pawnbroker's shop feels heavier than the last. You remember a time when you walked this street without shame, without dread, without the weight of knowing your possessions were dwindling as quickly as your sanity. The cobblestones glisten from last night's drizzle. Carriage wheels splash through puddles. A newsboy calls out headlines in a voice too young to understand the tragedies he sells. You keep your head down. The pawnbroker's door jingles softly as you enter. The shop smells of varnish and loneliness, shelves lined with trinkets once cherished, now abandoned for a handful of coins. Behind the counter sits Mr. Pendry, his spectacles perched at the tip of his nose, his expression pinched even before he looks up. "Well," he mutters, "you again." You force a weak smile. "Just a little this time." He sighs, closing his ledger with a soft thump. "It's never just a little." You pull from your coat the only thing left that still has value, your father's pocket watch. The silver is tarnished at the edges, but it still catches the dim shop light, like a memory refusing to fade. You hesitate before placing it on the counter, your hand lingering, trembling because this isn't just an object. It's the last thing you swore you'd never pawn. Pendry's eyes soften. "Only a little. This watch meant something to you." "It still does." "Then don't pawn it." You exhale shakily, the tremor worsening. "I don't have a choice." He studies you, your hollow cheeks, the tremor in your fingers, the dullness creeping into your eyes. Maybe he sees the truth. Maybe he's seen it in others. Still, he reaches for the watch, turning it over with careful hands. "I can give you," he calculates, 6 shillings. You nod, the motion small and broken. He slides the coins across the counter. They clink softly, a sound far too small to justify what you've lost. You scoop them up quickly, as if they might vanish before you leave the shop. As you step back into the fog, the coins heavy in your pocket, guilt spreads across your chest like a bruise. You tell yourself it's temporary, that you'll buy the watch back once things settle. Once you're steady again, once the trembling stops. But the truth hums beneath every lie you've told yourself. Debts born from desperation don't stay temporary. And with each one, you lose another piece of who you used to be. It begins with a scent. Not opium, not damp wool, not the familiar sourness of your own sweat clinging to the curtains, but something floral, faint, almost polite. The kind of perfume respectable women wear when visiting acquaintances in the better parts of London. You notice it the moment you step back into your room, coins jangling softly in your pocket from the pawnbroker. The door shuts behind you with a hollow thud, and the perfume lingers in the air like the ghost of someone who has only just left. Your breath catches. The room looks unchanged at first glance. The rumpled bed, the weak glow of the lamp, the bottle tucked half hidden beneath your coat. But the scent doesn't belong. Not here. Not in this cramped space where dust and laudanum usually settle like old secrets. You walk slowly inside, every step reminding you how unsteady your legs have become. The floorboards groan. The room watches. Something is wrong. You set your coat on the chair and draw in a deeper breath. The perfume sharpens a hint of bergamot, something floral underneath, and a whisper of powder. You blink hard. Nobody visits you. Nobody respectable, at least. Not anymore. You turn in a slow circle, searching for signs of disturbance. The blanket has shifted, just slightly. A cup has moved half an inch from where you left it. The curtains sway, though the window is tightly latched. And then you see it. On the bedside table, a small, folded piece of paper. Your pulse spikes. You don't recognize it, don't remember bringing it in, don't remember writing it. The room tilts gently as you cross the floor and pick it up with trembling fingers. The paper is fine too, fine for anything you would spend money on. The fold is sharp, clean, careful. Someone with steady hands did this. Someone who wasn't shaking, who wasn't sweating, who wasn't fading. You unfold it. There's only one line inside. I came by. You were asleep. No signature, no name. Just those 7 words, written in looping, elegant handwriting you don't recognize. Your breath shakes unevenly. You sit down hard on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping beneath your weight. The perfume hangs thick around you now, as though the person had been sitting right beside you mere moments before. You swallow, tasting fear in the back of your throat. You try to remember. You squeeze your eyes shut, forcing your mind back through the haze of the day. The walk to the pawnbroker, the ache beneath your ribs, the coins exchanging hands. But nothing before that. Nothing inside your room. Nothing of anyone entering, anyone speaking, anyone calling your name. You don't remember falling asleep. You don't remember waking up. And you certainly don't remember someone standing over your bed, leaving a note, leaving their scent behind like a quiet claim. A wave of dizziness sweeps through you. You grip the blanket to steady yourself, knuckles whitening. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was the landlady. Maybe it was a mistake, wrong room, wrong door, wrong floor. You tell yourself these things, stacking them like bricks to build a wall between you and the truth rising beneath them. Someone was here, while you slept, and you didn't wake. The trembling in your hands worsens. You stand abruptly, pacing the length of the room, the note still clutched in your fingers. You check the window latch once more. Firm. You check the wardrobe. Empty. You check beneath the bed, though you dread what you might find. Dust. Shadows. Nothing. And yet you can't shake the feeling that the room contains more than you can see. That someone stood right where you stand now, watching your chest rise and fall in fragile rhythm. That someone leaned close enough for their perfume to settle over your pillow. That someone folded the note with deliberate care and set it by your bedside like a gift or a warning. You sit again, dropping the note onto the table. The perfume lingers long after the room has stilled. You don't know who came. You don't know why. And worst of all, you don't know how long they watched you sleep. You wake before the light does, your eyelids snapping open as though pulled by invisible threads. For a moment, the room is nothing but darkness and the hollow thud of your heart, beating with the insistence of something trying to claw its way free. You breathe in sharply, tasting stale air tinged with opium and yesterday's panic. Your throat is dry, your limbs feel heavy, and, worst of all, your mind is already racing too quickly, too loudly, long before sunrise dares to touch the windows. It's happening again. The mornings are arriving faster than they should, slipping beneath your door like cold drafts. You blink slowly, trying to understand if you only just fell asleep or if you had been awake for hours. there is no way to tell. Sleep has become a fractured thing, splintered into sharp little pieces that cut your rest to shreds. Each time you close your eyes, something pulls you back: fear, tremors, the unfamiliar scent from yesterday's mysterious visitor, or the echo of footsteps you swear you heard in your hallway but can no longer place. Your gaze drifts to the bedside table. The note from the unknown visitor lies folded neatly where you left it. Its presence in the dim room feels unnerving, as though it might open itself and form words you don't want to read. You look away quickly. Your hands begin to tremble. You sit up, blanket falling away from your shoulders. The cold strikes instantly. You wrap your arms around yourself, rubbing your forearms in small circles. The tremors worsen with movement, rattling through you like loose stones in a tin cup. You clench your fists, willing them to still, but your body pays no mind. It shakes because it must. Because there is no opium in your veins yet, no soothing syrup to quiet the fear screaming beneath your skin. Your eyes drift toward your coat. Inside the pocket lies the second bottle, the one you found under the bed, the one you still cannot explain. Its presence both comforts and terrifies you. You draw your knees up to your chest, breathing through the tremors, trying to delay the moment you reach for it. But it's no use. The morning presses down on you like a weight. A too early morning. A morning that shouldn't have come so soon. You rise carefully, the floorboards creaking in soft protest beneath your bare feet. The sound echoes oddly in the still room, as if the wood is speaking a language you should understand by now. You cross the floor and pick up your coat, fingers fumbling at the pocket. When the bottle's glass touches your skin, a shiver runs through you. Not relief yet, but expectation. A whisper of hope. You set the bottle on the table, staring at it through half-lidded eyes. The temptation is immediate, sharp. Yet something presses into your thoughts, the perfume from last night, the folded note, the creeping dread that someone stood in this room watching you sleep, or worse, that you've finally begun losing hours so completely that you cannot trust your own memories. Your breath hitches. You clutch the collar of your shirt, grounding yourself, feeling the rapid rise and fall of your chest. Just a moment, you tell yourself. Just one moment before I take it. You look toward the window. The sky outside is still black, no dawn creeping over rooftops, no soft glow easing the edges of the fog. You woke far too early again, maybe minutes after falling asleep, or maybe days. You can't tell. The clock on the wall ticks steadily, but its numbers feel abstract, irrelevant. The world outside remains in shadow. You unscrew the cork. The tiny pop is devastatingly loud in the silence. You lift the bottle to your lips and take a long, trembling swallow. Warmth spreads through you like a slow, rolling tide, smoothing the jagged seams of your panic. Your hands steady slightly. Your breath evens barely. The room no longer seems poised to collapse upon itself. But as the relief settles in, a new realization begins to curl its way into your thoughts. If the mornings keep coming sooner, if your sleep keeps dissolving into fragments, if you continue waking in darkness without knowing how long you've been gone, there will come a day when you will wake to no morning at all, only more darkness. And you fear not, for the first time, that you might not notice the difference. The fog has not lifted by the time you force yourself back onto the street. It clings to your coat like damp fingertips, following you down the alley, pooling in the spaces between buildings where sunlight never reaches. Your breath comes in uneven bursts, each exhale blooming into a pale cloud that dissolves almost immediately. You cradle the empty bottle in your pocket, a secret, a sin, a necessity. The tremors have quieted, but not fully. They wait beneath your skin, restless, like something pacing behind a locked door. The chemist's shop appears through the fog as a dim smudge of warm light, barely visible until you're almost upon it. You hesitate outside, hand hovering over the door handle. You know you shouldn't come. He told you he wouldn't sell you more until next week. He warned you with a look that lingered too long, with a voice softer than pity. But the bottle is empty, and the mornings keep coming too soon, and your body buzzes with a frantic need that no amount of willpower can quiet. You push the door open. The bell above it chimes sharply, its sound cutting through the stillness like a thin blade. The warmth inside wraps around you, but it feels wrong, too warm, too close. Shelves lined with bottles stretch upward like rows of glass eyes watching you enter. Your boots leave faint, damp prints on the wooden floor. You swallow hard, tasting the bitterness of last night's dose still sitting at the back of your mouth. The chemist looks up. His expression twists first in surprise, then concern, then something heavier. He closes the ledger slowly, as if buying himself time to gather the words he already knows he must say. The lamplight catches on the lenses of his spectacles, swallowing his eyes in reflection for a moment. When he stands, the floorboards creak, a quiet protest beneath his weight. "You shouldn't be here," he says. You open your mouth, but no words come out. Instead, you step forward, hand tightening around the edge of the counter. The tremor starts again, subtle but visible. The chemist sees it. His jaw tightens. "Please," you manage. The single word thin and frayed. He exhales, long, tired. You can see the exact moment he softens, the exact moment his resolve wavers. He steps closer, studying your face with a gentleness that feels almost unbearable. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, he speaks your name. Once, and then again. More slowly the second time, more deliberately, as if grounding you to the floor, as if reminding you that you are still someone worth acknowledging, as if summoning back whatever fragments of you are slipping through the cracks. The sound of your name hits you like a blow. You flinch. He lowers his gaze to your shaking hands. "This is killing you," he murmurs. "And you're disappearing so quickly, I'm afraid I won't recognize you next time you walk through that door." Something in you fractures, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a quiet, devastating way, like the snapping of a thin thread you didn't know was holding you together. You lean against the counter, trying to steady your breath. "I don't know what's happening to me," you admit, the words raw. "I'm missing hours. I'm waking before dawn. Someone was in my room." You stop, swallow. "I found a bottle I don't remember buying." At this, the chemist stiffens. His eyes sharpen, cutting through your haze like the edge of a scalpel. "A bottle you didn't buy?" he repeats. "Are you sure?" You nod. Your vision swims. He steps back, rubbing a hand across his face. When he speaks, his voice is heavy. "This is worse than I feared." He reaches beneath the counter. For a moment, you hope foolishly that he's retrieving another bottle. But instead, he pulls out a small wooden box, worn at the edges. "I can't give you more," he says gently. "Not today, not like this." Your heart drops into a pit of cold dread. The room seems to tilt. You grip the counter harder, nausea pooling in your throat. "Please." He shakes his head. "If I give you more now, you won't make it through the week." His voice wavers. "And I cannot be the one who hands you your final dose." Your breath shatters in your chest. The chemist reaches out, placing a steadying hand on your arm. His touch is warm, human, real. "Go home," he says softly. "Rest, lock your door, and if anything else strange happens, come straight back. Don't wait." His voice cracks slightly on the last word. You stand there for a long moment, numb, trembling, hollow. The fog outside seems to seep into your bones. When you finally step back, the chemist says your name once more softly, carefully, like a prayer for someone already descending into darkness. The bell chimes above you as you leave. Its sound brighter than the lightless street. But nothing feels bright anymore. And as the fog swallows you once again, you realize the chemist isn't the only one who fears what you're becoming. You fear it too. You hear her before you see her, the soft scratch of her slippers along the hallway floor, the faint clearing of her throat, the pause outside your door that always lasts a breath longer than necessary. You're sitting on the edge of your bed, elbows braced on your knees, hands clasped tight to hide the tremor running through them. The morning is barely awake, a thin sliver of grey light slipping between the curtains, and already your pulse stumbles in uneven beats. The remnants of last night's panic cling to the air like damp linen. Another knock. Not loud. Not demanding. Just expectant. You swallow hard and force yourself to stand. Every movement feels louder in the silence, the rustle of your shirt, the creak of the floorboard under your bare feet, the small hitch of your breath. You unlock the door and open it to find the landlady perched outside, her posture stiff as a wooden post. She looks at you over the rim of her spectacles, eyes narrowing at a pace slow enough to feel deliberate. She takes in everything: your pallor, your quivering hands, the sheen of sweat across your brow, the way your body leans slightly against the doorframe as if gravity is suddenly too strong. "Morning," she says, though her tone makes it clear she doubts the morning is good for either of you. You force your lips into something resembling a smile. "Morning." Her gaze slides past you, into the dim room behind. The air inside is heavy and sweet, thick with the scent of opium that no cracked window or hurried sweep can fully disguise. She sniffs once, sharply, the corners of her mouth tightening. You brace yourself. "Rent," she says simply. Your heart sinks. The pawnbroker's coins sit in your pocket, what remains of them after last night's wandering, but they're few, far fewer than what she expects. You reach into your coat with a steadying breath, but the tremor betrays you, rattling the coins like loose bones. You place what you have in her outstretched palm. She counts them, slowly, visibly disappointed. "This isn't the full amount," she murmurs, tucking the coins into her apron. "Not nearly." You look away, unable to stand the weight of her stare. "It's all I have for now." "For now," she repeats under her breath, as though tasting the words. They leave a bitter expression on her tongue. She shifts her spectacles, letting them rest higher on her nose, and studies you with a level of scrutiny you haven't seen from her before, not suspicion anymore, but concern edged with something darker. Fear, perhaps. A landlady must know the signs of decay in her tenants. She must know how to spot those who won't last through winter. "Are you unwell?" she asks. The question hits harder than you expect. You inhale sharply, the air shaking in your chest. "Just tired." You lie. Her eyebrows lift just barely. She's heard that excuse too many times. You watch her lips press into a thin line, the skin around her eyes tightening. She steps closer to your door, not into your room, but near enough that you can feel the heat of her presence. "Your neighbors have heard things," she says softly. "Strange noises, movements late at night. And yesterday morning," she hesitates, her voice dropping like a whisper slipping under the floorboards. "Someone thought they saw a shadow in your room when you were out." A cold hush spreads through your blood. She folds her hands neatly in front of her. "You may think I don't notice, but I do. I've been running this place longer than you've been alive. And I know when a tenant is," she searches for the word, "changing." Your breath stutters. The walls seem to tilt. She leans closer. Her voice softens, not unkindly, but with a weary sort of resignation. "You're not safe like this. I don't mean from others, I mean from yourself. You can't respond. You can barely breathe." She straightens, smoothing her apron. "I'll give you until week's end," she says quietly. "But after that, I can't have trouble under my roof. Not the kind that spreads." The implication wraps around you like a noose. She steps back, giving you one last lingering look, half pity, half warning, before turning to leave. Her footsteps fade down the hallway. You close the door slowly, trembling so violently the knob slips from your fingers. The room darkens again. The rent is short, your time is running out, and someone, somewhere, saw a shadow in your room. When you know you were gone, you sink to the floor as the air thickens, realizing with a hollow dread that the landlady sees it now too. You are not simply unwell, you are unraveling. You step outside because the room has grown too small again, shrinking at the edges, pressing against your lungs, making every breath feel like it must fight to exist. The morning air is colder than expected, sharp enough to sting your cheeks, but it's a relief compared to the thick, suffocating sweetness inside. You pull your coat tight around your ribs and descend the stone steps one at a time, each footfall echoing faintly in the silent street. London is awake, but only barely. A milk cart rattles somewhere in the distance, its wheels groaning through the fog. A lamplighter moves steadily down the row, snuffing out the last of the street lamps with a practiced flick. His figure is nothing but a silhouette in the mist, tall, thin, swaying slightly like a reed in the wind. You take a step toward the corner. The ground tilts. Not much, only a fraction. Only enough to make your stomach lurch and your hand dart toward the nearest wall for balance. Your fingers scrape across cold brick, anchoring you as the street slowly rights itself. You blink hard, swallowing against the sudden rush of nausea. A trick of the eyes, you tell yourself. A remnant of the dose, a momentary lapse in footing. You take another step. The ground tilts again. This time sharper, like the world has shifted under your boots. The buildings lean with you, as though bowing from their foundations. A shop sign swings gently overhead, creaking in a slow, mournful arc. The cobblestones ripple, not literally, but enough that your mind interprets their unevenness as movement. You stumble forward, catching yourself against a lamppost. Its metal is slick with dew, cold enough to bite into your palm. You try to breathe. The fog thickens around you, obscuring the street like a curtain drawn too quickly. You can't see more than a few steps in any direction. The silence deepens, swallowing the distant sounds of carts and voices, as though someone has lowered a heavy blanket over the world. Your heartbeat skips. For a moment, the street feels wrong, tilted, off-kilter, uncertain, as if something beneath London's surface has shifted, a giant turning in its sleep. You shake your head, trying to clear it, but the world staggers again. The buildings on either side blur into sharp angles, leaning toward each other as though conspiring over your head. You hear your own breath, shallow, ragged, too fast, and force yourself to focus on the cobblestones, one at a time. Left foot, right foot, steady. You reach the corner and brace yourself against the brick wall, pressing your forehead to its rough surface. The trembling rises through your shoulders, climbing your neck like a warning. A memory flickers of the chemist saying your name twice, of the landlady's gaze over her spectacles, of the note from the visitor you don't remember seeing. All of it crashes together, a wave you can't outrun. You lift your head. A figure stands at the far end of the street, still, unmoving, facing you. At this distance, they are nothing more than a shape tall, dark, half swallowed by the fog, but something about the stillness of their posture sends a pulse of dread through your spine. You blink once, twice. The figure does not move. The street tilts slightly again, enough to blur the silhouette for a fractured second. When the world steadies, the figure is gone, vanished into fog as thick as wool. Your breath trembles out of you. You look behind you, half expecting to see the shape standing nearer at your back, at your shoulder, whisper close. But the street is empty, blanketed in silence. You force yourself to keep walking, though each step feels like balancing on a shifting deck of a sinking ship. Your boots slide across slick stone. The tremors return, stronger than before, shaking your arms, your ribs, your breath. And beneath it all, the knowledge cuts deeper than the cold. The street didn't tilt. You did. And if the city continues to move beneath your feet like this, you fear there will come a day when you won't be able to stand at all. You feel the eyes before you hear the voices, soft, prying, hidden behind thin walls and thicker fear. By the time you stagger back up the steps to your lodging house, your breath uneven from the street that kept tilting beneath your feet, the silence inside the building is too deliberate, too careful, as if the very air is eavesdropping. You pause on the landing. The hallway stretches before you, narrow and dim, lit only by the dying glow of a single gas sconce. Its flame trembles, casting warped shadows along the peeling wallpaper. You place a hand on the wall to steady yourself, your fingers dragging across rough plaster. The world sways briefly left, then right before settling into an uneasy stillness. Somewhere behind one of the closed doors, someone shifts. A footstep, a whispered breath, a hushed voice saying your name. You're almost certain of it. You turn your head sharply, listening, but the sound disappears into the wood and wallpaper, leaving only the faint squeal of pipes and the distant hum of the city outside. The building feels alive with secrets, its old bones creaking softly as though trying to speak. You take a step toward your room. Another whisper trails behind you. Low, urgent, not meant for your ears. Your pulse quickens. You hover outside your own door, glancing over your shoulder into the dim hallway. For a heartbeat, you're sure you see a shadow withdraw beneath one of the other doors, swiftly, quietly, like a creature slipping back into its den. You try to calm yourself, but your breath trembles. Your hands tremble. Everything trembles. You fit the key into the lock. Before you can turn it, the whispering begins again, this time not faint, not muffled, but unmistakably intentional. It drifts from the room beside yours, where the widow with the pale hands lives. Her voice is usually soft, her movements nearly silent. But tonight, her words carry thin, raspy, shaking with fear. "He's getting worse," she murmurs. "He wanders at all hours. And the noises from his room." You freeze. Another voice responds, deep, strained, belonging to the man who lives across the hall. "It's the tincture," he says. "Men go mad on it. Seen it happen in the docks, waking dreams, fits, shadows that aren't there." Your blood goes cold. You press your ear to the wall before you can stop yourself. The plaster is chilled, and their words vibrate softly through it. "He's not right," the widow whispers. "He's frightening the others. Landlady should have thrown him out weeks ago." A pause. A breath. Then, "You didn't see what I saw last night." Your heart seems to stop. Shuffling. A chair creaking. Then the widow's voice again, even lower now, trembling. "His door was open." A soft gasp. He wasn't inside, but something was. A shiver runs violently through you, cold enough to make your knees buckle. You grip the doorknob until it digs painfully into your palm. "I saw a figure," she whispers, "tall, too tall, standing by his bed. And when it turned," she chokes on the words, "there was nothing where the face should have been." Silence. Long, crushing. Then the man asks, voice barely audible, "Have you told him?" "No," she breathes. "He wouldn't believe me. They never do not when the opium has its claws in them." Your heart beats so loudly you're afraid they'll hear it through the wall. You force your trembling fingers to turn the key. The lock clicks loudly, too loudly, and the whispering behind the wall stops abruptly. You stand there, frozen, the key still in your hand. For a moment, the entire building seems to hold its breath. You push open your door and step inside. The familiar scent of laudanum greets you, heavy as always. But now there's something else beneath it, something cold, metallic, lingering like a warning. You shut the door behind you. Slowly, carefully, you stand in the dim room, listening. No voices, no whispers, no footsteps, But the walls feel thinner now, more porous, as though the house itself has been listening too. You sink onto the edge of your bed, burying your face in your hands. They're whispering about you. They've seen something in your room, something that wasn't you, and for the first time, you're terrified not of what you might become, but of what might already be standing beside you in the dark. You go to him because you've run out of excuses, because the tremors have grown too violent to hide, because the landlady watches you with corners of her eyes, because the whispers behind the walls cling to you long after you leave the hallway. But mostly, you go because you can no longer trust your own reflection. This morning, when you looked into the cracked mirror above the wash basin, your face seemed stretched, drawn thin over bones that didn't quite look like your own. Your eyes flickered in the glass, as though struggling to stay focused on you. You looked away quickly. The doctor's office sits at the end of a narrow street where the fog gathers like spilled milk. You stand outside for a few breaths, steadying yourself, before pushing the door open with a trembling hand. Inside, everything smells of camphor, old paper, and quiet resignation. The doctor sits behind a wooden desk, cluttered with instruments, glass tubes, metal tools, folded notes in delicate handwriting. He lifts his head as you enter, his eyes stern yet strangely gentle, like a priest listening to a confession. His hair is streaked with grey, his coat buttoned neatly, his hands folded with patient certainty. "You're early," he says softly. "You didn't realize you had an appointment. But perhaps you did, and simply forgot." You sit in the chair opposite him. The room tilts slightly. You blink until it steadies. He notices everything. "How long have you been shaking like this?" he asks, studying your hands. You try to hide them beneath your coat, but he gently lifts your wrist with careful fingers, his touch firm but not unkind. "It's nothing," you whisper. He sighs. "It's not nothing, not when you can barely keep still." He retrieves a small lantern from his desk, turning the wick until a soft flame glows. He brings it close to your face, watching your pupils react. They don't. Not enough. Not properly. He frowns deeply. Then he places 2 fingers against your pulse. Your heart thrums unevenly, like a panicked bird trapped behind your ribs. "What have you been taking?" His voice is quiet, but it carries the weight of scripture. You open your mouth to answer, but the truth seems too large to fit through the narrow space of your throat. You swallow. Laudanum, you manage, only when needed. He gives a sad, skeptical smile. "And when is that?" You don't answer. He sits back, exhaling through his nose. "I've seen this before, more times than I care to count." His voice drops to a solemn whisper. "You're losing hours, aren't you?" The breath leaves your lungs. He continues. "You forget where you've been, wake before dawn, hear things that aren't there, see things that may be more suggestion than reality." He hesitates. "And sometimes reality becomes more suggestion than truth." Your mouth goes dry. You nod. He closes his eyes briefly, as though offering a silent prayer. When he opens them again, there is nothing but sorrow in the blue-grey depths. "You're slipping," he says gently. "Your mind is beginning to turn on itself. The hallucinations, if they haven't begun already, will come soon. The confusion will worsen. You may see people watching you who aren't there. Or worse, you may fail to see those who are." Your heart stumbles. "I'm not mad," you whisper. He leans forward, resting his hands on his knees. "Not yet." The room seems to shrink around you. The walls bow inward just slightly, bending like damp wood. Or perhaps that's just your vision again. You grip the arms of the chair and focus on the doctor's voice. "There is still time," he says. "You can stop. It will be painful. It will be long. But it is possible." You shake your head. Too quickly. Too sharply. The room wobbles. "I can't." You choke out. "I can't stop." His expression softens, and for a moment he looks older, tired, worn by too many conversations like this one. Then the laudanum will finish what it has started. His voice lowers. And you will not know when the end truly begins. Silence blooms between you, thick, suffocating, final. He reaches into a drawer and pulls out a folded note. If the shadows in your room return, he says quietly, or if someone visits you without knocking, come back immediately. Do you understand? Your pulse quickens. How do you know about that? He doesn't answer. He only looks at you with the same expression priests wear during last rites, sorrowful, steady, resigned. You leave the doctor's office, with the fog curling around your ankles and his warning echoing in your mind like a bell tolling far too early. You are slipping, and soon the line between what you see and what is real may vanish altogether. You reach your room long before you feel ready to face it. The building stands hunched against the fog, its narrow windows glowing faintly like tired eyes. The hallway creaks under your weight as you ascend the stairs. Every sound echoes your boots against the wood, your uneven breath, the faint murmur of voices from rooms you cannot see. Yet no one steps into view, no doors open. The silence feels arranged, deliberate, as though the house itself knows you're coming and holds its breath accordingly. Your key trembles in the lock. When the door swings open, the smell inside greets you like a chilling memory, sweet, dense, unmistakable opium mingling with stale air. You pause on the threshold. The doctor's warning presses itself against the back of your mind, quiet but persistent. If the shadows return, come back immediately. You step inside anyway. The room envelops you. The lamplight is dimmer than usual, hardly more than a glow fighting the heavy dusk drifting through the air. You shut the door behind you firmly, checking the bolt twice, and your gaze drifts almost immediately toward the window. It stands shut, curtains drawn tight. You cross the room slowly, each step echoing too loudly in the stillness. For a moment, your reflection flickers faintly in the glass. You stop. Your breath snags in your throat. The glass is fogged from the inside. You raise a hand, touching your fingertips to the pane, the chill needles into your skin. You pull the curtains tighter, tugging the fabric until it puckers unevenly. Outside, whether morning, afternoon, or early dusk, the world has dissolved into grey. You cannot see the street, you cannot see the lamps, you cannot see anything at all. You used to open this window every morning, to let in the cold bite of London's air, to hear the soft clatter of carts and the distant cry of merchants, to remind yourself that the world outside continued even when your mind frayed at the edges. But lately, the window has remained shut. You no longer trust what might be waiting beyond the glass. You draw the curtains tighter still and take a step back. The room shifts slightly, the floorboards seeming to tilt beneath your feet, and you reach out, catching the edge of the table for balance. The tremor returns, crawling up your arms, settling into your shoulders. You try to breathe through it, but something else rises with the trembling, a cold, creeping unease. Because the glass hadn't been fogged when you left. You move slowly to the bed and sit down. Your fingers brush the blanket, feeling the faint warmth in the fabric, not warmth from the room, but from the indentation near the edge. As if someone had been sitting there, waiting. You swallow hard. A noise rises from somewhere beyond the window, a soft tap, then another. The kind of sound raindrops might make if they fell one by one, slowly, deliberately. But when you listen closely, it doesn't sound like rain at all. It sounds like fingernails, gentle, testing the glass, searching for a weakness. You grip the blanket harder. The sound stops. Silence floods the room like water filling a basin. You stare at the curtains without blinking, expecting the tapping to return. It doesn't. Instead, something far worse settles into the quiet. A faint, steady breath. Not yours. Not inside the room. Right on the other side of the window. You clamp your hand over your mouth to smother the whimper rising in your throat. Your pulse roars in your ears. The breath continues slow, uneven, fogging the glass with each exhale. You can see it now, a patch of grey condensation blooming against the black silhouette of the curtains. Someone is standing outside your window, 3 stories above the street. You shut your eyes. Hard. The doctor's warning echoes again. If someone visits you without knocking, come back immediately. But you don't move. You sit frozen on the bed, trembling violently, waiting for the sound to stop, waiting for the breath to fade, waiting for the shadow beyond the window to lose interest. Minutes pass. Finally, mercifully, the breath stops. The fog on the glass slowly fades. You stay seated, shaking, staring at the still curtains as a single shattering thought roots itself deep inside you. You aren't keeping the window shut to stay warm. You're keeping it shut because something keeps coming to look in. It happens just after dusk, when the bruised light of evening has settled over the rooftops and the narrow street outside your window has sunk into the kind of silence that feels almost deliberate. You stand in the kitchen downstairs, the one all the tenants share, clutching your coat tight around your ribs as you wait for the kettle to boil. You told yourself you came for tea, warmth, a moment to steady your nerves after the breath on the other side of the glass. But really, you came because the walls upstairs felt too close again, and the window's black silhouette had begun to resemble an open mouth. The kettle groans on the stove. You place a cup on the counter, your hands trembling so violently that porcelain clinks against wood. You take a small breath, willing your fingers to still. They don't. Instead, your hand slips into your coat pocket almost by instinct, seeking comfort, seeking certainty. Your fingertips brush the familiar curve of the bottle. Relief flickers through you, brief, shameful, warm. You pull it free. The kitchen light catches the amber glass. The liquid inside glows faintly, swirling like molten gold. You loosen the cork, lifting it toward your lips, but the door at the end of the kitchen slams loudly, snapping your attention away. Your grip falters. The bottle slips from your hand. For a suspended, breathless moment, it glitters mid-air like a falling star before clattering onto the stone floor and rolling away from you with surprising speed. It spins in a wobbling circle, bumps against a chair leg, then darts beneath the cast-iron stove with a soft thud. No, no, no. The words escape you in a raw whisper as you drop to your knees. You reach under the stove until your arm vanishes up to the elbow, fingers sifting through dust, crumbs, and old soot. You can't feel it. You stretch farther, cheek pressed against the cold floor, your breath fluttering in shallow, frantic bursts. Still nothing. Panic rises like a tide. You shift your position, press your shoulder against the ground, and shove your arm even deeper beneath the stove. Your fingertips brush something smooth, round. Relief jolts through you. You reach farther. Your hand closes around the bottle. But as you pull it toward you, your fingers freeze. The bottle is cold, not the coolness of glass on a chilly night. No, this is something else, something wrong. A deep, biting cold that sinks into your skin like frost. You recoil instinctively, your breath catching in your throat. You hesitate. Then, slowly, you reach for it again. This time, the cold is gone. The glass feels normal, familiar, almost warm. You tug it into the open, holding it up in the dim light. The cork remains in place. No cracks, no spill, nothing out of the ordinary, except that you're certain, absolutely certain, that for a moment it felt like holding a block of ice. You sit back on your heels, chest heaving. Your fingers tremble harder now, not from withdrawal, but from something deeper, something older, something instinctive. The shadows in the kitchen seem to lean toward you, as though listening. A floorboard creaks. You jerk your head up. Someone is standing in the doorway, a faint silhouette, unmoving, watching. Who's there? Your voice cracks on the final word. The figure steps forward slightly, enough for the dim kitchen light to touch its shape, but where a face should be, there is only darkness, a hollow space, a void that seems to drink the light. You scramble backward, clutching the bottle against your chest. But as your back collides with the stove, the figure dissolves, melting into the kitchen darkness like a wisp of air drawn through a narrow crack. Gone. The only sound left is the kettle screaming its boil, shrill and desperate. You stand on shaking legs, slam your hand down on the stove to silence it, and flee the kitchen, the bottle clutched tightly against your ribs. You nearly trip on the staircase, your breath coming in short, panicked bursts. In your room, you slam the door shut, bolting it twice. Only when you sink onto the bed, bottle still in hand, do you realize this truth. The stove didn't swallow your bottle. Something else was waiting under it. And tonight, it reached for you first. The night settles over your room in a slow, suffocating descent, the kind that presses the air flat and makes every sound feel sharper, closer, entirely too aware of you. You sit at the small wooden table, the bottle beside your hand like a faithful companion or a patient executioner. The lamplight flickers in irregular pulses, casting trembling shadows along the wallpaper that seem to lean in each time your attention falters. You push the bottle away, just out of reach, just far enough to pretend you have a choice. A sheet of paper lies before you, its edges curled from neglect. The ink pot sits open, waiting, as though mocking your hesitation. You dip the pen with a hand that betrays you, shaking, twitching, refusing the steadiness needed to write the truth. Still, you press the nib to the page. It scratches softly, a thin, hesitant whisper of ink forming the first shaky letters. My dearest. You stop. Who are you writing to? You stare at the words until the letters begin to blur. You tell yourself it must be someone from before the tincture took hold, before your memories softened into fog. Someone you owed an explanation to. Someone who once cared. A friend. A lover. A brother. A ghost. The pen trembles between your fingers. You try again. I fear the nights are growing longer. The sentence breaks in the middle, the nib dragging a crooked line across the page as your hand betrays you again. You close your eyes and breathe out shakily. The tremors worsen as soon as your thoughts brush the truth. Longer nights, shorter mornings, missing hours. But you force your hand back to the page. You write 3 more words before the room tilts violently to one side. Ink splashes. Your breath catches. The pen slips from your fingers and rolls off the table. You grip the edge of the wood to steady yourself, heart pounding. The walls pulse with your breath, closer, then farther, then impossibly close again. You squeeze your eyes shut until the world steadies, but when you open them, the paper has shifted. Not much, just an inch, just enough to make you freeze. You didn't move it. The lamplight flickers twice long, drawn-out pulses like slow blinks from an unseen eye. The shadows lean toward the table, stretching across the ink-stained wood. You swallow hard and reach for the fallen pen. It lies just beneath your chair. But when you bend to grab it, your fingers brush something else. Another paper. Folded, crisp, new. You pick it up with trembling hands. Your name is written on the front in elegant handwriting you don't recognize. Your stomach drops. You unfold it. There are only 4 words inside. Finish what you started. Your breath stutters violently. A cold weight settles in your spine. You check the room, every corner, every shadow, every place someone might hide, but nothing moves, nothing breathes. Nothing stands beside you. And yet the air holds tension, expectation, a presence that lingers just beyond your sight. You turn back to your own unfinished letter. The ink on your half-written sentence is still wet, but there's something new above it. A line you did not write. I'm watching. Your hand jerks back as though burned. The chair legs scrape loudly across the floor. You stumble away from the table, knocking into the wall. Your lungs seize, your thoughts blur. You scan the room frantically, window locked, door bolted, wardrobe empty. But the letter on the table lies open, waiting. The words stare back at you. Words written in your room, while you were sitting there, while your back was turned, while your hand held the pen. You collapse onto the edge of the bed, chest heaving, hands shaking beyond control. The bottle rolls toward your foot, stopping as though placed there. You don't pick it up. Not yet, because the room feels crowded now. Too crowded. Full of someone you cannot hear, cannot see, but can feel breathing behind every flicker of lamplight. Your letter remains unfinished, but the thing in your room, the thing that leaves notes, moves paper, writes in your hand, is growing impatient. And tonight, it wants you to finish what you started. You don't remember falling asleep. Only the violent way you wake gasping, heart hammering, as though you've surfaced from deep water with lungs full of cold air. The room is bright, too bright. Daylight pours through the curtains in pale, merciless sheets, illuminating every corner you wish remained in shadow. You raise a trembling hand to shield your eyes, but even the filtered light stings like needles pricking your skull. It's morning, or afternoon, or something in between. Time has begun slipping through your fingers so freely that you no longer trust the sun to tell you what hour it is. Your head throbs, your throat is dry. The blanket is tangled around your legs, damp with sweat or tears, you can't be certain which. You sit upright, blinking through the stabbing light, and immediately wince. Your vision pulses at the edges, fading in and out as though threatening to go dark altogether. You squint toward the window. The curtains are open. You freeze. You never leave the curtains open anymore. You shut them tight every night, afraid of what might be watching from the street below, or worse, from the air above. Your breath snags in your chest. Someone must have opened them. The thought sparks a wave of cold dread that rises through you. You swing your legs off the bed, feet meeting the cold floorboards. For a moment, the room spins, tilting gently like a boat in slow water. You reach for the table to steady yourself, fingers brushing the edge of a plate you don't remember using. There's food, a crust of bread, a slice of cheese, half eaten. You recoil. You didn't eat last night, you're certain of it, and yet the plate sits there, ordinary as morning, holding quiet evidence that your body did something without your mind. Your pulse quickens. The edges of your vision blur again. You grip the table harder, then you notice something worse. Footprints. Faint smudges of soot trailing from the door toward the window, too large to be yours, too heavy. They move with purpose, straight to the curtains, then back again, vanishing into the wooden grain near the wardrobe. You stumble backward, heart drumming wildly. No, no, no. Your voice cracks, dissolving into the stale air. You rush to the door and check the lock. Still bolted, still firm. You touched it yourself last night twice, before sinking into the chair with the unfinished letter staring back at you. But someone was here. Someone moved through your room with deliberate steps while you slept helplessly. Someone opened the curtains. Someone placed food near your hand, as though offering care or bait. Your skin crawls. The light continues, pouring in, unrelenting. You close the curtains swiftly, hands shaking so hard the fabric slips through your fingers. Daylight feels hostile now, sharp, watching. You draw the panels tight, twisting them until the room is dim again. Only then do you breathe. Faintly, shakily. But the air does not feel safer. Shadows pool at the edges of the dim room, as though the darkness has been waiting for its turn. You sink into the chair, burying your face in your hands. "What is happening to me?" you whisper. But the room offers no comfort, only silence thick enough to choke. You look toward the plate again. The bread has small indentations as if touched by fingers not quite human, and beside it, on the table's edge, something catches the faint light. A thin strand of hair, dark, too long to be yours. You reach for it, but your fingers brush only emptiness. The hair is gone. You scramble to your feet, panic flooding every nerve. The room feels wrong, tilted, hostile, crowded. You stumble back toward the bed, breath quickening, feeling the walls tighten around you. You reach for the bottle, not to take it, but to hold it, to feel something real in a world slipping beyond recognition. Your hands tremble violently around the glass as a single dawning realization settles over you like a shroud. It isn't the darkness you fear anymore. It's the daylight, because daylight means someone was here, and daylight means they might return. The first thing you notice is the silence, not the ordinary hush of morning, nor the muted quiet of a fog-soaked street, but a deeper silence, one that feels intentional, deliberate, like something has pressed its hand over the house's mouth. You sit on the edge of your bed, fingers curled around the bottle you still haven't dared to open, your breath trembling as it leaves your chest. The curtains remain drawn tight, the daylight kept firmly at bay. You've learned your lesson. Daylight reveals things you aren't ready to face. You stare at the door. For days, has it been days? Hours? Your friend used to knock. Softly, always softly. The kind of knock meant not to startle you, as though he understood somehow that too much sound could tip your fragile balance. 2 taps, a pause, then, if you didn't answer, a third, gentler than the rest. It has been long since you've heard any knock at all. You rise slowly, steadying yourself on the table. Your vision wavers curtains blending with wallpaper, shadows doubling at the edges. You take a careful breath, then another. The room shifts with you, as though following your movements too closely. You ignore it. You cross to the door and press your ear against the wood. Nothing. No footsteps in the hall. No distant voices. No whispering behind closed doors. Just the house's hollow breathing, the boards expanding and contracting like ribs beneath the floor. Your pulse quickens. You step back, your hand hovering near the handle. You want to open it to check if the hallway still exists, if the building still stands, if your friend is on the other side waiting with furrowed brows and worried eyes. But something inside you recoils. A memory flashes. The footsteps behind the walls. The figure watching you from the fog. The breath on the glass. The letter that wasn't yours. The world outside your room no longer feels like safety, and the world inside it feels like a trap. You sink into the chair, drawing your knees close. The silence thickens. You wonder how long it has been since your friend last knocked, how long since he said your name, his voice cracking slightly, as though carrying a burden he couldn't share. You remember the look he gave you, equal parts worry and dread. You remember turning away from him, ashamed of the tremors in your hands. You hadn't meant to push him away. Yet now, the silence feels like punishment, or abandon, a space where concern used to live. You glance toward the door again, but before you can decide whether to open it, something shifts at the edge of your vision. A faint movement, quick, subtle, like a shadow darting along the wallpaper. You turn your head sharply, heart pounding, but nothing is there. Only the dim outline of your chair, the crumpled blanket on your bed, the table where your unfinished letter still lies. You exhale shakily. Then you hear it. Not a knock, not footsteps. A voice, soft, breathless, right outside your door. Are you there? You freeze. Your friend's voice, but wrong somehow, too faint, too stretched, as though spoken through water or behind a wall much thicker than the one separating you now. Your breath stalls. You tiptoe toward the door, pressing your ear to it again. Silence. Then again, almost a whisper inside your skull. "Are you there?" Your stomach drops. You know that voice. You know it too well. But it no longer sounds like someone living. It sounds like a memory mimicking a voice it only half remembers. You step back from the door. "No," you whisper. "No. Your friend hasn't knocked in days. Not because he's forgotten you. Not because he's angry. Not because he's given up. But because he's gone. And whatever stands in the hallway now, whatever speaks with his voice, is not him." You retreat into the center of the room, trembling violently. The walls lean inward as though eager to listen. The air grows thin. You clutch the bottle to your chest, breath shallow. Because you finally understand. Your friend didn't stop knocking. He simply isn't the one knocking anymore. It begins with a sound you've heard every evening since you first rented the room. A steady tick, soft and comforting. The heartbeat of the wall-mounted clock above your writing table. Its rhythm has always been predictable, a small anchor in the drifting fog of your days. But tonight, as dusk settles like a bruise across the sky and your lamplight flickers with its familiar unease, the ticking shifts. Not the pace, not the tone, but something deeper, something you feel before you fully hear. The clock skips. Just once an extra beat swallowed, a moment stolen, and you sit upright, breath catching. You close your eyes, steadying yourself. You tell yourself it's nothing. A mechanical error. Dust in the gears. Old clocks falter sometimes. The room feels too warm, the air too still. You listen again. Tick, tick, T-C-K. Another skip. Your heart stumbles in response. You rise from the bed, knees unsteady, and step toward the clock with slow, measured movements. Each footfall echoes strangely, as though the floorboards are reacting not to your steps but to the shifting rhythm in the room. By the time you reach the table, the clock's ticking has begun to sound wrong, too fast, then too slow, then perfectly normal, just long enough to fool you, then wrong again. You reach out, fingertips brushing the wooden frame. It's warm like a living thing. You pull your hand back sharply, pulse quickening. The lamp flickers, casting a series of trembling shadows across the wall, and you feel the same creeping dread that visited you on the night the walls moved closer, on the morning when daylight hurt your eyes, on the day the doctor spoke like a priest preparing you for fading. The ticking stops. Completely. You freeze. The silence swells in its absence, thick as wet cloth pressed over your mouth. You wait, muscles taut, breath held, heart hammering. Seconds or minutes or hours drift by in the smothering quiet. And then, without warning, tick. A single, sharp, resonant tick. Then another, and another. But the sound doesn't come from the clock. It comes from the wall, just below it. Inside it, your breath catches. You step back, shaking your head as if denial can unhear what your ears know. The ticks continue not evenly, not rhythmically, but in frantic, uneven bursts. Like fingers tapping, like nails impatiently drumming, like something inside the wall trying to mirror the clock's heartbeat, and failing. You stumble backward until your legs collide with the bed. You sink onto it, unable to look away as the ticking grows louder, closer, almost as though the wall itself is breathing between each tap. Your thoughts splinter. Is it the laudanum, the sleeplessness, the shadows the doctor warned you about? Or is something truly there, pressing its weight into the thin wood, watching? Then, slowly, terrifyingly, the clock's minute hand begins to move. Not forward, backward, a single notch, then another. You stare, tears burning in your eyes. The room tilts. Your heart lurches as time itself seems to rewind not violently, but with agonizing slowness. as though the clock is dragging the minutes back towards some unseen point. Tick, backward, tick, backward, until the minute hand stops precisely where it was when you first woke this morning, unsure if you had slept at all. You cover your mouth with a trembling hand. The ticking stops again, both from the clock and the wall. Silence returns, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels watchful, waiting. You rise slowly and reach for the clock again, desperate to steady it, desperate for something to obey the rules of the world you once knew. Your fingertips brush the glass, and the clock ticks. Once. But this tick doesn't come from the clock, or the wall, or even the room. It echoes behind you. Right behind you. You whirl around, breath frozen in your chest. But the room is empty, utterly still. No shadow shifts, no door creaks, no figure lingers. Yet the air is colder, thinner, as though something has just passed through it. The clock on the wall remains silent, frozen, stuck at the time the morning should have begun. And in that moment, you understand something with terrible clarity. You are no longer losing hours. You are being brought back to them, dragged backward, by something that wants you to relive what you've forgotten, or what it refuses to let you escape. It begins before sunrise, though sunrise has lost its meaning in your life, replaced with a grey half-light that leaks through the curtains like cold breath on glass. You awaken not because of a sound, nor from a dream, but from the trembling, violent, relentless, a relentless quiver that originates somewhere deep inside your bones and radiates outward, filling your limbs with a frantic, uncontrollable energy. Your hands shake so hard the blanket rustles like dry leaves. Your chest tightens. You curl your fingers into fists, but the tremor only intensifies. You try to breathe through it, but each inhale is thin and jagged, each exhale strained and broken. You sit upright in bed, but the room sways, tilting just slightly as though shifting away from you, denying you any stable ground. You press your palms against your thighs, forcing your muscles to obey, but your hands refuse to still. The tremor moves upward into your elbows, your shoulders, your jaw. Your teeth chatter softly in the dim, cold room. You squeeze your eyes shut, desperate to steady yourself, but all you see behind your eyelids is a pulsing white haze, like lightning trapped inside your skull. You reach for the bottle. Of course you do. Your fingers grasp at the table, knocking against its edge. The bottle lies within arm's reach, but your hand sways, sliding past the glass, missing it entirely. You try again, and again. Each attempt feels like you're reaching for something floating on water, always just out of reach. You manage to grasp it finally, your fingers closing around the cool, amber glass, but the tremor is so forceful you nearly drop it. You clench it with both hands, desperate, terrified, your heart pounding like a warning drum, too fast, too hard, too wild. But when you bring the bottle close, you freeze. There is almost nothing left inside. Barely a swallow. Barely enough to quiet the trembling. Barely enough to hold your mind together. You stare at the thin line of liquid, panic rising like a tide. You swore you had more than this left. Did you drink it in the night? Did someone slip into the room again? Did the hours you have lost swallow the dose with them? Your breath shudders violently. The tremor worsens. Your vision begins to stutter, light, dark, like someone is flicking a lamp inside your skull. You open the bottle with trembling fingers, the cork popping loose with a ragged sound that seems too loud in the stillness of the morning. You bring it to your lips, but just before the liquid touches your tongue, a sound stops you cold. Footsteps, slow, heavy, right outside your door. You freeze, bottle hovering inches from your mouth. The tremor pulses through your limbs, but now it isn't the only fear inside you. You swallow dryly, listening. The footsteps stop just beside your doorframe, as though whoever is there knows exactly where you sit. You hold your breath. The floorboards creak again, softer this time, closer. And then, a whisper. Your name, spoken in a voice you do not recognize. Your entire body goes rigid, the tremor swallowed briefly by sheer terror. The bottle slips from your lips. You clutch it to your chest, breath trapped in your lungs. Another whisper. Your name again, drawn out. Hungry, patient. You glance toward the door and your heart stumbles. The shadow beneath it shifts, stretches, as though someone has pressed their face to the gap at the floor, watching you from the other side. The tremor explodes inside you, your body jerking violently. Tears blur your vision. You curl inward, desperate to disappear into yourself, to vanish, to stop being a thing worth watching. The shadow remains, silent, still, waiting. At last, after what feels like an eternity, it retracts slowly, like a creature slipping back into the dark. The footsteps recede down the hall. You remain frozen on the bed, clutching the bottle so tightly the glass digs into your palms. Your hands still shake. Your bones still vibrate. Your breath still fractures. And you understand, with a clarity colder than winter, that the tremor won't stop. Not now. Not later. Not until the bottle is empty. And the bottle will be empty. Long before. The shadows in the hall lose interest in you. By the time you reach the chemist's street, the tremor has spread through your entire body like a fever made of restless electricity. Every step is a negotiation. Your knees threaten to buckle. Your breath comes in thin, shallow bursts, as though the air itself is resisting you. The alleyways blur together. Horses and carts pass like ghosts. The city feels distant, tilted slightly away from you, as though London itself is growing tired of keeping you upright. You clutch the empty bottle in your pocket as though it might dissolve if you loosen your grip. Your fingers ache from holding it. Your knuckles burn white. You don't care. The bottle is your only proof of what you need, the only argument you have left. Fog clings to your coat by the time you push open the chemist's door. The bell trembles overhead, sharp, accusing, far too loud. The warm air inside hits you like a blow. Camphor, herbs, alcohol, polished wood, familiar. Once comforting, now it feels like the smell of judgment. The chemist looks up before you even reach the counter. The moment his eyes meet yours, something inside your chest sinks. His expression is not surprise, not pity, something heavier, something final. You shouldn't be here, he says. The words strike like cold water. You swallow hard, pulling the bottle from your pocket. It shakes in your grip, rattling softly. Please, you rasp, the single word scraping the inside of your throat. Just one more. His jaw tightens. He steps out from behind the counter, placing himself between you and the shelves of amber bottles. You have never seen him move so quickly. His voice softens, but the softness is sorrow, not mercy. I meant what I said last time. You shake your head, breath accelerating. I can't look at me, I can't stop it. I'm losing hours. I'm waking in the dark. Your voice cracks. Please. The tremor surges, violent enough that the bottle slips from your fingers and clatters onto the floor. You drop to your knees instantly, scrambling for it. Your hands skid across the wooden slats. You feel the chemist's shadow fall over you before his hand rests on your shoulder. Enough, he murmurs. His voice is steady, anchored, but beneath it trembles a quiet horror. You lift your face to him, blinking through the blur in your vision. I'm dying, you whisper. He closes his eyes for a moment. Not yet, but if I give you more, yes. A sound leaves you small, broken, desperate. You grab his sleeve, your fingers curl weakly into the fabric. Please, just something to hold me together. My hands, my mind, there's something in my room, something in the walls. He kneels beside you. I believe, he says softly. that you are seeing things that feel real. His thumb presses lightly against your temple. But those things are born from the tincture. They are not coming for you, they are coming from you. Your breath falters. No, he's wrong. He must be wrong. There was someone in my room, you whisper fiercely. They touched things. They moved the curtains. They left a note. He shakes his head, and the gesture feels like a door closing. I can't give you more. I will not be the man who sells you the bottle that ends your life. The chemist stands. You remain on your knees. The shop spins around you, the shelves bending, the walls leaning inward. Your hands claw weakly at the floorboards, trying to pull yourself upright, but your limbs revolt, shaking violently. You press your forehead to the wood, teeth chattering. Please, you whisper again. A pause, a breath, a sound like a heart breaking. Then the chemist steps away. His footsteps are slow, heavy. He returns to the counter. He opens his ledger, but he does not look at you. Not once. You gather the empty bottle with trembling fingers. You stand slowly, swaying as though walking through water. The chemist does not lift his eyes. Go home, he says quietly. Before the shaking worsens, you stumble toward the door, clutching the bottle to your chest. The bell rings overhead, soft, mournful, echoing into the fog as you step outside. The street tilts beneath your feet. Your vision pulses. Your heart stutters. And you know long before you reach your lodging house that without another dose, the tremor will only grow stronger. It will tear through you, piece by piece, until nothing inside you is still enough to hold your shape together. By the time you reach the lodging house, the tremor has grown so violent it feels as though your own bones are clattering inside you like loose china in a cupboard. The fog outside swallows the street, but even through its thickness you sense the house waiting, leaning toward you, its narrow windows like half-closed eyes watching your approach. You climb the steps slowly, gripping the railing with hands that refuse to obey, your breath coming in thin, ragged threads. When you push the door open, the hallway greets you not with silence, but with attention. A thick, unnatural stillness hangs in the narrow corridor, heavier than anything you've felt before. The air presses against your skin like damp cloth. Every board beneath your boots seems to shift slightly, ever so slightly, as though the entire building tilts in response to your presence. You stand at the threshold, trembling. The hallway feels aware. You force yourself to take a step inside. The floor creaks beneath your weight, a long, groaning sound that echoes like a low warning. The lamp at the far end flickers, its flame stuttering with a faint, unnatural rhythm, almost as if matching the pounding of your heart. You swallow hard and begin the slow walk toward the staircase. Each step feels like forcing yourself deeper into something sentient. The wallpaper seems darker than before, its familiar floral pattern forming shapes you don't remember, shadows curling into silhouettes that vanish when you blink. The banister gleams faintly, though you don't know why. No one has polished it in months. You keep your eyes forward. Just reach the stairs, you tell yourself. Just go up. Just get to your room. But the hallway seems longer tonight. The air grows colder the farther you walk, slipping through your coat as though seeking your bones directly. The tremor worsens. Your fingers twitch uncontrollably. Your knees buckle with each step, forcing you to grab the wall for balance. Halfway down the corridor, the floorboards behind you creak. You freeze. The sound is unmistakable, a deliberate shift of weight, the subtle complaint of old wood responding to a footstep. But you are alone. You turn your head slowly, dread tightening across your ribs. The hallway behind you is empty, dim, still. Yet the air feels disturbed, as though something has just moved through it, as though something stands very near, just beyond the range of your failing vision. You hold your breath, waiting, listening. Another creak. Closer this time. as though someone is mirroring your steps. You lurch forward, nearly stumbling as you hurry toward the staircase. The tremor nearly topples you, but adrenaline overrides it. You reach the bottom step and grip the banister, pulling yourself upward with shaky breaths. Halfway up the staircase, you hear it again. A step, this time directly beneath you. You spin around so quickly your vision blurs. The bottom of the stairs stretches before you like a dim well. No shape stands there, no shadow moves. Yet the air ripples, faint but real, as though disturbed by something no longer present. Your breath trembles. You turn back toward the upper landing. The lamp above casts a faint glow along the hallway outside your room, but the door you swore you shut that morning now stands ajar. Only slightly, only a sliver, but enough for the darkness inside to spill across the threshold like ink. Your stomach drops. You take one step toward it, then another. Your pulse quickens with each trembling movement. When you reach the top of the stairs, the hallway feels almost expectant. You approach your door slowly, heart pounding so loudly you hear it in your ears. The darkness inside shifts faintly, just a ripple, a suggestion like someone stepping away from the crack of light. You reach out with shaking fingers and push the door open. The hinges sigh softly, like the exhale of someone relieved you've finally come. Your room is dim, silent, undisturbed, but the air inside feels recently occupied, warm in some places, cold in others, with the faint impression of movement lingering like a scent. You do not speak. You do not move. You stand in the doorway, trembling violently, knowing with a sinking certainty that the hallway didn't just watch you walk, it followed you. Every step, every breath, every quivering inch of the journey. You stand in the doorway longer than you realize, breath trembling at the edges, unsure whether your room is welcoming you or warning you. The air feels unsettled, thin in some places, heavy in others, as though the walls have absorbed something that hasn't yet evaporated. You grip the edge of the doorframe to steady yourself. The tremor vibrates through your arm, through the wood, through the silence. You step inside. Your boots barely touch the floor before the door behind you shifts, not fully, just enough for the hinge to whisper. You freeze, turning slowly. The door remains open, but the air around it shimmers with the faintest suggestion of movement, like a curtain stirring when no window is open. You swallow, forcing yourself to breathe. You shut the door, firmly twisting the lock until it clicks. You rest your forehead against the cool wood, eyes closed, palms flat, trying to collect the fragments of yourself that feel scattered across the room. But the tremor rises again, shaking your ribs like something clawing to escape. When you finally turn around, the room seems smaller. Or you seem larger. You cannot tell. You cross to the bed, each step unsteady, as though the floor tilts ever so slightly beneath you. You sit on the edge of the mattress, head in your hands, elbows resting on your knees. The tremor shudders through your arms, your breath, your vision. You press your palms to your eyes, willing the shaking to stop. It doesn't. After a moment, you lift your head, blinking through the blur. Your gaze drifts to the table. The unfinished letter remains where you left it, ink blotched, edges curled. The words "I'm watching" staring at you like a warning carved into stone. You lean forward, reaching for the paper with trembling fingers. That's when the door closes. A slow, deliberate motion, like a hand pressing it shut from the outside. The lock clicks. You shoot upright, breath frozen in your throat. The tremor jolts through your whole body at once. You stare at the door, wide-eyed, waiting for footsteps, shadows, breathing, anything. Silence. But not a peaceful silence. A listening silence. You inch toward the door, heart pounding. Your hand hovers over the bolt, uncertain whether to unlock it, or check it, or run from it entirely. Before you touch it, the wood shifts gently under your fingertips, warm, almost pulsing. You snatch your hand back. Someone or something was just on the other side. You stagger backward, bumping into the table. The ink bottle tips, rolls, clinks against the edge. The tremor in your hands worsens until you can barely keep them at your sides. Breath ragged, vision pulsing. You fumble toward the bed again. A low creak fills the room. Not the floor, not the wardrobe, not the window, the door handle. It turns. Just a fraction. A slow metallic whisper. You press yourself against the wall beside the bed, clutching the blanket in your fists, trying to make yourself small, invisible, absent. The handle trembles once, then stills. A pause, a breath, or the memory of a breath, or the echo of one pressed against your door from the wrong side of reality. You wait seconds, stretching into minutes until the room stops shuddering with your fear. Then you slide down the wall, knees drawn to your chest, forehead resting against your arms. You sit there for a long time, long enough for the lamp to flicker, long enough for the tremor to settle into something lower, deeper, long enough to hear your heartbeat slow, not because you're calm, but because you're exhausted beyond anything your body can hold. You look at the door one last time. The bolt remains turned. The handle hangs still. The silence waits. And you understand with bone-deep certainty. Whatever closed your door tonight did not come from the hallway, and it did not leave. When the door shut, it is still here, somewhere in the room. You keep your back against the wall for as long as your trembling body allows, knees pulled tight to your chest, breath shallow and uneven. The room feels wrong, distorted at the edges, too narrow in some places, too wide in others. The lamplight flickers in slow pulses, spreading gold across the wallpaper, then pulling it away again, as though the room is breathing. You tell yourself you're alone. You tell yourself nothing crossed the threshold when the door shut of its own accord. But the air disagrees. It feels occupied, heavy, contained. You lift your head slowly, your spine stiff with fear. You scan the dim shapes of your room, the chair, the table, the wardrobe with its slightly warped door, and your gaze drifts toward the far corner beside the window, the darkest corner, the one the lamplight never reaches, the one you have never looked at long enough to understand. Tonight, something is there, not clearly, not openly, but the darkness is thicker, a deeper stain against the already dim room. You can't make out a shape, not fully, only the suggestion of one, like the outline of a person seated with their knees drawn up, their spine curved forward, their head bowed, watching you, or waiting for you to notice. Your breath turns thin as thread. You squeeze your eyes shut for a moment, shaking your head as though the motion could scatter the shape apart. But the tremor only worsens, rattling your teeth, shaking your ribs. When you open your eyes again, the shape hasn't changed. It hasn't moved, but it hasn't faded either. You rise slowly from the floor, pushing yourself up the wall with unsteady arms. You wait for your vision to steady, though it never truly does, and take a step toward the lamp, hoping to strengthen its light. The flame sputters. You freeze. The wick trembles, dances, then leans sideways as if pulled by a breath you cannot feel. The room dims further. Shadows stretch. The shape in the corner grows darker, denser, more solid. Your hands begin to shake so violently you drop the blanket from your grasp. It falls soundlessly. You take another step, but your knees buckle, sending you onto the edge of the bed. The springs creak in protest. The shape seems to flinch. You speak before thinking. "Who's there?" Your voice is barely more than a whisper, a broken thing, but the darkness reacts. The outline shifts, as though turning its head toward you. Your breath seizes. You grip the mattress, nails digging into the fabric. Silence answers, but not emptiness. The room thrums softly, like a heartbeat beneath the floorboards. Your mind scrambles for explanation, withdrawal, hallucination, lack of sleep, but none of them quiet, the primal fear rising through you. Every instinct screams that something is in the room with you. Something patient, something old, something that has been watching longer than you've realized. You force yourself to look away, toward the table where the unfinished letter still rests. Ink dried, words unfinished, threat waiting beside them. Finish what you started. Your breath stutters. You look back toward the corner. It's empty. The darkness is only darkness again, thin, flat, ordinary, as if the shape dissolved the moment you looked away. Relief flickers through you, weak and trembling, until you hear it, a soft sound, not behind you, not in the hallway, not from the window, directly beside your bed, like the sound of fabric shifting, like someone easing themselves down beside you on the floor. You jerk upright, heart pounding, eyes wide. The dim lamplight reveals nothing, no figure, no movement, only the quiet, hungry dark stretching along the boards. You grip the blanket again, arms shaking, chest heaving. You try to speak anything, something, but your voice refuses to form. Then a cold sensation touches your ankle. Just a brush, just a whisper, just enough to stop your breath. You pull your legs up instantly, curling them beneath you, back pressed against the headboard. Tears sting your eyes but refuse to fall. You stare at the place your ankle had been, at the floor where the dark seems thicker now, as though something slipped just beneath the boards. The room waits in silence. You clutch your knees, rocking slightly, not to calm yourself, but to remain aware of your own body, to remind yourself you still occupy it. The lamplight flickers again, weaker this time, and in the trembling glow, you finally understand what has been creeping into your room night after night. You are not hallucinating, you are being watched. And whatever sat in the corner is not finished with you yet. You do not remember falling asleep. You only remember the way you wake, sudden, choking, as if dragged upward from a place deeper than dreaming. Your breath tears from your lungs in a ragged gasp. Your hands fly to your throat before your mind catches up, before the room sharpens around you, before you understand that you are upright in bed, with no memory of sitting up at all. The lamp is still burning, barely, weak, trembling, its flame no more than a thin thread of light. Your room swims in the dim glow, walls wavering, corners bending slightly inward. The air feels wrong, warm where it should be, cold, cold where it should be, warm like breath against your skin from a direction you cannot name. You run your tongue across your teeth. It tastes of iron. A metallic tang sits in your mouth as though you've bitten your own tongue, or someone pressed a coin to it in the dark. You swallow hard, your throat aches, you lift a trembling hand to your neck. Your skin tingles, not from touch, from pressure, from fingers that are no longer there. You force yourself to breathe. Slowly, you look toward the foot of the bed. The blanket is twisted, bunched, tangled around your legs. The sheet is damp with sweat. But worst of all, the pillow on your right is pressed down as though someone sat there for a long while, watching, listening, waiting for you to wake. Your pulse spikes. The tremor returns with sudden ferocity, rattling your ribs, your breath, your vision. You cling to the mattress, nails digging into the fabric. You try to speak, to call out, to demand an answer, but your throat tightens, seizing around the words. When you finally force your voice free, it emerges in a sound you do not recognize. Who's there? But the words are wrong. They are yours, yet they do not sound like you. Deeper, hollow, as though someone else shaped them inside your mouth. You clamp your hands over your lips, horrified. The room responds. The wallpaper quivers faintly, as though shivering. The floorboards release a long, low groan, too slow to be natural, too deliberate to be coincidence. You inch backward until your shoulders press into the headboard, breath shaking violently. Something in the darkness shifts. Not in the corner this time, not under the bed, not behind the door. In the air, directly in front of you. A ripple passes through the dimness, thin, subtle, like heat above a flame. You blink hard. The ripple remains. It stretches, widens, then condenses into something almost like a shape. Your voice breaks again, without your permission. Don't, please. But the plea is not yours. It sounds like someone else speaking through your lungs, someone whose breath is thinner, whose fear is older, whose voice trembles with a memory you do not share. You clamp your mouth shut. The ripple hangs in the air, pulsing faintly, as though listening. You try to stay silent, to disappear, to fold into the smallest version of yourself, but your throat betrays you. A thin whisper escapes your lips, soft as a draft slipping under a door. I can't stop. You freeze. The whisper is not your thought, not your fear, not your voice. It is something trying to speak through you. Your body begins to shake violently, as though your bones are splitting into pieces inside your flesh. Your vision blurs at the edges. You brace yourself on the bed, gasping. The ripple moves closer until it hangs no more than an arm's length away. You squeeze your eyes shut, unable to bear the sight. The tremor surges. Your hands claw at the blanket. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably. A breath grazes the side of your face. Not air. Not warmth. Not cold. Something else. Something like a voice exhaling without words. And then your mouth opens. You do not open it. Your jaw simply drops. A voice spills out. Low. Broken. Strangled. Let me stay. Your eyes fly open. Tears blur your vision. You stumble backward, striking the headboard with your shoulder. Pain shoots through you, but you barely register it. You press both hands to your mouth, trying to shut yourself up, trying to stop the thing from shaping your breath into words. The ripple retreats, just slightly, just enough to show you it heard, just enough to promise it will return. Then, slowly, it dissolves into nothing. The lamp flickers once, twice, then steady. The room is silent. You collapse onto the bed, shaking uncontrollably, pressing your hands hard over your mouth to keep any more stolen words from escaping. Because now you understand. It's not trying to enter your room. It's trying to enter you. You spend the first hour after the voice fades sitting perfectly still, hands clasped over your mouth, knees drawn tightly to your chest. The blanket beneath you trembles not from any draft, but from the rippling fear moving through you in waves. You watch the lamplight shiver against the wallpaper, the flame leaning first left, then right, as though beckoned by something invisible drifting through the room. It takes everything in you to lower your hands from your face. Your jaw aches. Your throat burns. Your lips feel bruised, as though pried open by fingers made of air. You whisper nothing. You think nothing. You wait. At last, you manage a breath that doesn't break in the middle. You shift slightly, the bed springs squeaking beneath your weight, and force yourself to stand. Your legs nearly buckle. You grab the bedpost for support, fingers trembling uncontrollably. The room leans with you. The shadows stretch. The air thickens. The walls seem to pulse in slow, patient movements, like the rising and falling of a chest. You don't dare speak, but the silence is no safer. You take a step toward the table. The unfinished letter lies exactly where it was, though the edges now curl upward slightly, as if exposed to breath. Not your breath. You swallow hard. The ink glistens faintly. The words you did not write stare up at you. Finish what you started. A cold shudder crawls up your spine. You reach for the lamp, intending to turn up the wick, to chase every shadow out of the corners, but before your fingers touch the metal dial, a sound rises from the wall behind you. Soft, tentative, testing. A faint tap, then another. You go still. The tapping continues, but not like the frantic ticking from nights before. This is slower, more deliberate, as though someone is feeling along the inside of the wall with patient fingers. Tap, tap, tap. You press your back to the table, breath caught in your chest. The tremor surges again, rattling your bones. The tapping grows louder, moving along the wall, tracing a path. You follow the sound with your eyes, even though you cannot see anything. The noise slides along the plaster, turning at the corner, gliding toward your bed. Tap, tap. It stops. Your pulse hammers. Silence stretches thin as thread until something presses against the wall from the other side. Not a knock, not a tap, a push. The wallpaper bubbles outward for a single horrifying moment, as though a hand or a face were pressing through the plaster. The pattern warps, distorting into the faintest shape of features that vanish the moment your breath breaks into a strangled gasp. You stumble backward, colliding with the bed. The mattress dips slightly under your weight. Then, your name, whispered, from the wall, clear, soft, terrifyingly intimate. You clap your hands over your ears, but the voice doesn't come through them. It rises inside your skull, vibrating through your bones like a tuning fork struck in the dark. You sink to the floor, curling into yourself, shaking so violently you fear your ribcage might split. Tears spill without your permission. Stop. You gasp. Your own voice this time. Yours? You think? The wall breathes. There is no other way to describe it. The wallpaper expands slightly, contracts, then expands again. A slow rhythm, a knowing rhythm, the rhythm of something inhaling the space between you. You scramble backward on hands and heels until you slam into the opposite wall. Your palms slap against the cold plaster. Your breath hits a patch of air that feels too warm, like exhalation. Your vision blurs. Your throat closes. Your mind fractures along the edges. The walls whisper again. Not words. Sounds. Your breath, your heartbeat, your name repeated in dozens of faint echoes, like a choir of thin voices, learning the shape of you, practicing you. You choke on a sob. No, no, leave me. The voices stop instantly. The room freezes. Even the air halts. And then, softly, almost tenderly, the wall behind you murmurs your name one final time. Perfectly. Flawlessly. As if it has been speaking it for years. You collapse forward, sobbing into your sleeves, unable to breathe, unable to think. The room tilts. Your vision dims. You curl inward, praying for unconsciousness to take you. Because now you understand something worse than any hallucination. The walls are not watching you. They're learning you, your breath, your voice, your name. And soon, very soon, they won't need you to hear you again. You lie on the boards longer than you intend, your breath shaking in shallow bursts, your cheek pressed to the cold wood, as though you might slip through it if you stay still enough. Your tears cool quickly. The trembling doesn't. It moves through you in pulses, shallow, violent, unpredictable, leaving your fingers numb and your thoughts scattered like broken glass across the floor. Eventually, you force yourself to lift your head. The lamp flickers weakly on the table. The shadows bend with the flame. The walls have grown quiet, but nothing feels safe. Your body aches as you push yourself to your knees. Your palms slip once, either from sweat or from the faint film of dust that seems to settle over everything in your room faster than it should. You brace yourself against the bed frame and rise unsteadily, the tremor still rolling beneath your skin like distant thunder. You take one slow step. The floorboard beneath your foot shifts. Not creaks, not the usual groan of old wood, but shifts, a gentle rise, as though something underneath pressed upward at the exact moment you stepped down. You jump back with a strangled gasp, heart thundering. The board settles again, flat, still, innocent. You stare at it. You've lived in this room long enough to know its sounds, its movements, its small failings. This is none of them. You swallow hard and take another step carefully. Weight balanced, breath held tight. The board to your right moves, lifting, just slightly, just enough to suggest a breath being drawn beneath it. Your knees weaken. You stumble backward, hand flying to your throat. No, no, no. But the whisper is barely audible. You stand perfectly still, listening. The room holds its breath. The floorboards remain flat. You take another cautious step, this time toward the table, toward the one pool of light left in the room. Then the floor shifts again. Not one board this time. Several. A soft, rolling motion passing beneath your feet, subtle but undeniable, like the slow ripple of something large turning over in sleep beneath wooden skin. You cling to the table to keep from falling. Please, you whisper, not to the room, not to the walls, but to the darkness under the floor. A crack splits the quiet. You flinch violently. It came from beneath the boards, right beneath you. Your bare feet feel the vibration travel upward, into your ankles, your calves, trembling all the way to your spine. You back away, but the shifting follows you, slow, deliberate, always just beneath your weight, as though the floor itself is tracking you. You lunge for the bed, collapsing onto the mattress with trembling limbs. The springs creak, the floor stills, but only for a moment. You sit frozen, listening to the silence press against your ears. Then, tap, directly under your bed. Your breath rips from your chest. You pull your legs onto the mattress in one shaking motion, curling them tight to your chest. The wood under the bed bows upward an inch, then drops back down. You scramble backward until your spine meets the headboard. The shadows along the floor pulse faintly. Tap, tap, as though fingers were drumming softly from beneath. Stop, you choke out. Stop. The room ignores you. Another shift, this time, sliding from one end of the bed to the other, slow, dragging, curious. You can feel it tracing you, mapping your weight, your movement, your breath. Then everything goes still, utterly still. You hold your breath. A single line of darkness appears between two floorboards, thin as a thread, then widens, just a hair. You watch in horror as something pushes upward, bending the wood from below before releasing it again. You clap a hand over your mouth to smother a scream. The gap closes. The ripple stops. The floor becomes still once more. You sit motionless for minutes, maybe longer, lungs burning, tears gathering but refusing to fall. Only when your heart slows enough to feel like it's beating inside your chest rather than your throat do you dare inch toward the lamp. You turn up the wick with shaking fingers. Light fills the room, and the floorboards nearest the bed shift once more. A final movement. A small one, almost like a shiver, or like something settling in to stay. You retreat into the corner of the bed, pulling the blanket around you, rocking gently as the tremor inside you merges with the tremor beneath you. Only one truth remains, cold and unmistakable. You are not standing on your floor anymore. You are standing over something. You do not sleep. You cannot. You lie awake for hours or minutes or years, with the blanket clenched in your fists and the tremor shuddering through your bones. Every time your eyelids flutter closed, a soft sound rises beneath the bedboards, like a sigh drifting upward through cracks too thin to see. You stare at the ceiling, waiting for dawn, for footsteps in the hall, for anything that proves the world outside your room continues to move. But the building remains silent, as if the entire house is holding itself very still, listening to the thing moving beneath you. Finally, When the lamp sputters and threatens to die, you force yourself to move. You curl your shaking legs over the side of the bed, feet hovering above the floor as though the wood might grab you the moment you touch it. You lower your toes slowly, too slowly, until they meet the boards. Nothing happens. Relief flickers, small and fragile. You stand, swaying. The tremor pulses in your knees. You step away from the bed, testing each footfall. The floor remains flat, silent, still. You exhale, but you don't trust it. Not anymore. Something beneath you had moved. Something had followed you across the room, and the house has begun revealing seams you never noticed, borders that feel thinner, hollower, ready to tear. Your eyes drift toward the wardrobe. Its door hangs slightly ajar, though you swear you shut it the night before. The crack is narrow, but enough for you to see darkness too deep for such a small space. You step closer, bracing your hand against the wall to steady yourself. Your fingers meet cold plaster, too cold, like stone untouched by sunlight for years. The tremor worsens. Your breath shortens. You reach for the wardrobe door. The wood is warm. Warm like breath. Warm like a hand had been pressed against it only moments before. You open it slowly. The wardrobe's stale smell drifts out moth-eaten wool, old soap, dust. Your coats hang limp like dead things. Nothing moves. The floor inside looks undisturbed. And yet, a faint, drafting breeze brushes your cheek. You freeze. There should be no draft, no window, no opening of any kind. You lean in further, trying to feel where the cold air is coming from, and your hand brushes the back panel of the wardrobe. It shifts. Not a trick of your senses. It shifts. You stumble back, nearly tripping over your own feet. Your heart thrashes. You stare at the wooden panel. You reach out again, fingers trembling uncontrollably, and press into it. The panel gives. A crack appears. A seam where there was none. You slide your fingers along the edges. The wood moves under your touch like something has loosened or been loosened. You push harder. The panel slants inward with a groan of hidden hinges. Behind it lies a narrow passage no taller than your shoulders, no wider than your hips. A black corridor carved into the darkness of the house. Cold, stale air rushes out, smelling of damp stone and soil long undisturbed. You choke on a breath. There should be no basement in this house. The landlady never mentioned one. The building is too old, too narrow, too crowded. And yet here it is, hidden behind the wardrobe, a narrow throat of darkness waiting beneath the floorboards. A soft sound rises from within. Not footsteps, not breathing. A faint scrape like a fingertip brushing along stone. You step back instinctively. Then another sound follows. A voice. Not words, not yet, but syllables forming shape. Rising like a memory dragged through layers of earth. Your skin crawls. The tremor rattles your teeth. You should run. You should slam the wardrobe shut and flee the room, flee the house, flee London if you must. But the voice speaks again. Softer this time. Higher. Familiar. Your name. Whispered from the black passage beneath the floor. You stagger backward, heart splitting open with terror as the voice crawls through the dark corridor, slow, scraping, almost gentle. The boards behind you shift. The lamp flickers. And you understand with a cold, sinking certainty. Whatever moved beneath your room has found a way up. You stumble from the wardrobe as though shoved, though no hand touches you, none that you can see. Your back strikes the edge of the bed frame, sending a crack of pain up your spine. You barely feel it. Your eyes are locked on the darkness behind the loosened panel, on the narrow, hungry corridor cut into the bones of the house. The air pouring from it grows colder with every second, heavy with damp earth and something older still. It feels like a lung expanding. It feels like a creature waking. You force yourself to stand. Your legs tremble beneath you. Your breath comes in small, sharp scraps. Instinct screams at you to run, but the floor has begun shifting again, subtle, nearly soundless, like something crawling beneath it in slow circles, testing each board, learning the shape of your weight. You take one step back. The passage exhales. A soft, wet inhale drags through the walls, pulling the air from your lungs as though the house itself is breathing in your fear. You press a shaking hand to your chest. The tremor worsens, rolling through your arms, your ribs, your jaw. Then the voice returns. Not the warped imitation that whispered through your door. Not the hollow echo that tried to speak through you. This time it sounds closer, clearer, more certain. Your name, spoken with a slow, knowing tenderness that carves its way into your bones. You grip the bedpost to keep from collapsing. Who are you? You rasp, though you barely hear your own words. Your voice sounds thin, weak, swallowed by the air the moment it leaves your mouth. The basement answers. Not with language, no. With movement. A faint shuffling rises from somewhere deep below the boards, a slow drag of something soft against stone. It grows louder with each breath, climbing the corridor toward the wardrobe. The darkness thickens, pulsing, almost liquid. You watch the opening, frozen. Something is coming up. You stagger backward, hitting the table hard enough to send the ink bottle toppling. It rolls in a small arc, stops, then begins inching slowly, deliberately toward the wardrobe, as if pulled by an unseen thread. Your vision blurs. You blink. When your sight clears, the opening seems wider. You know it hasn't physically changed, but the dark inside has grown deeper, denser, hungrier. Your legs refuse to move. You try again. The floor beneath your feet shifts, rising just slightly under your heels before settling again. You feel it like a heartbeat beneath the boards, slow, steady, watching. The tremor surges. You fall to your knees. The wooden boards feel warm, too warm, like skin pressed against yours. A whisper curls through the opening, soft, careful, almost coaxing. Come down. You clench your teeth hard enough to ache. No, you manage. Stay away. The darkness pulses, as if amused. Your lamp sputters violently, then extinguishes entirely. The room collapses into blackness. You gasp, groping blindly for the table, the wall, anything. But before your fingers find purchase, another voice emerges from the corridor. Your own. Perfect. Calm. Awake. I'm already here. Your breath stops. The darkness shifts. The floor rises. The boards beneath your knees flex inward, as though something below has pressed an open palm up against them. You scramble backward, nails scraping wood, chest burning with fear. Your hands find the bed frame. You pull yourself up with a desperate, wordless cry. Light bursts through the window as a cart passes outside, just a flicker, a momentary glimmer of lantern glow, and in that thin slice of illumination, you see something you cannot unsee. A hand, not fully formed, not fully human, pale, long-fingered, wrong pressing up through the crack between the floorboards. Reaching, searching. The light fades. The hand disappears. The floor stills. Silence engulfs the room so completely it crushes the air from your lungs. You collapse onto the bed, trembling so violently you fear you will shake yourself apart. Every inch of you is soaked in cold sweat. Your breath wheezes in short, broken bursts. You stare at the wardrobe. The opening waits. Dark as a grave. Deep as a hunger. Alive as breath. You understand, finally and fully. You were never hallucinating, never imagining, never alone. Something has been beneath this house long before you arrived, and now it knows your name.